Good afternoon and welcome back. The time is now 4:10. The Wayzata Public Schools Board of Education work session for Tuesday, April 29, 2025 will please come to order. Let's go around the table for introductions. We'll start from my right.
Heidi Cater.
Sheila Pryor.
Dan Ginestra.
Valentina Ayers.
Sarah Johansson.
Chase Anderson.
And I am Milind Sohoni. Thank you, everyone, and welcome again. As a reminder, the board does not vote on any item at the work session. This afternoon, we have 4 items on the agenda. First one, we have technology reports, and Wade Phillips, technology director, and his team will share an overview of technology in our schools. Wade? I don't know if you have a team, but you are the team. I thought somebody else might accompany you, but.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will represent the team this evening. All right. Well, good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Anderson. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. So I'm here to really share about the excellent work that we have going on in the district with regards to technology and technology services. So with that, we'll start at the top. So our district mission, which I'm sure you all know by heart, excellence for each and every one of our students. So from a technology point of view, we have a very clear purpose on what we're trying to do, and it's aligned to our mission at the top level. So we're here to ensure a world-class education that prepares each and every one of our students to thrive today and excel tomorrow at a very ever-changing local, national, global community. And that's our focus, that's our mission, that's the standard of excellence that we have in the technology department, and that's what we to hold up to on any given day. We also have the strategic roadmap, as you all know. So the strategic roadmap is a guiding document in our work. It's something that we go back and reference to quite a bit, citing the mission top, as well as our vision and our work. And it's also a grounding in our core values. So thinking about how we show up on any given day. It's all about those students on the image in front of you, and it's all about the core values that we bring to our work. And the strategic directions on the bottom. So this has been reviewed more recently, and you'll see as we go further into the presentation that we take those strategic directions and we put them into play within our operational plans, and we try to ensure that as we're working through the allocation of resources or trying to articulate a plan or have something happen within one of our schools, that we have a clear alignment to one of our strategic directions. So it's a core part of how we do our work. So from a high level, what I'll try to articulate again, representing the team from Technology Services this evening, is a 30,000-foot overview of why we're here. And that's all about, again, teaching and learning and the student learning experience here in Wayzata. We'll go through a little bit of the what. So what are we doing in technology? How does that play out in any of our schools? And what are some of the projects and initiatives that we have going on in the organization? And then I'll give you a little bit of an overview about the how. So how do we make all this stuff happen? And a little primer on how. It's all about really good people doing a really good job serving people in the district. So big picture, we'll start with the why. So the why is all about, again, teaching and learning and the student experience. And just kind of a reminder for the board and the audience, here in Wayzata, we're super fortunate. We are supported by the community and by voters through 2 technology levies in the district. And that funding goes into a very specific pot of money that's dedicated to meeting the technical needs of those in the district. So it goes to student devices, staff computers, educational software, interactive classroom equipment, instructional design, professional development, and technology support staff. That funding goes to those specific areas. So if you think about the teaching and learning experience all through the organization, hopefully you've had the opportunity either to send your kiddos through the Wayzata experience from little ones all the way up until secondary, or I'm sure you've been out into buildings in the classroom and you've walked around and you've seen and you've shared. What does that experience look like? And even though I'm here to represent what we do from a technology point of view, it's very human-centric. So at the elementary level, it's students working with students, the students working with teachers, it's teachers working with students. The technology component is there. It's there as a support structure. It's there as a part of the experience, but technology is not the focus on what we're doing here. So I want to make sure that that's clearly articulated, especially at the early learning. It's really about growing and developing really good humans, and that technology is just a component of it. So I've highlighted here on the slide just a couple of different ways that plays out at the elementary level. If you look at the image on the bottom right, we have a couple students who are in a classroom that's technology specific, that they're working on computers, led by a teacher who is a technical teacher and going through a very articulated, specific technical curriculum. That's part of our education experience at the elementary level. Or the two images on the bottom where we have students either working independently a little bit at an older level in the grade, and they may be working on Canvas, doing an assignment or assessment. Again, this is teacher driven and really specific to the work of either the curriculum, the learning objective, maybe working on an assessment and taking that on their iPad. Or the image in the middle where we have a bunch of kids who are sitting side by side, hip to hip, likely having some conversation or discussion around a broader topic and showing their work using the devices. So it's very individual, it's very personal, it's very different depending on the building you're at, the classroom you're in, and really what is the learning objective that's going on in the day and what the teacher is trying to have the kiddos working on. Top right image, we have a couple students there interacting with the smart board, maybe leading the class there. I'm not quite sure. I think the teacher in the back prepping some material, but they're probably showing and demonstrating some of the work on one of the smart boards in the classroom. In the top left image, we have some kiddos who are probably broken out from the class and either doing some Genius Hour work, working on an iPad, programming robots. So a lot of really cool, different experiences. And again, very individual, very personal, very different. The image in the middle is also a really good example about what happens at elementary level and all through the system, where kiddos work on paper, and they in this example did some coloring and I think some letter writing, and this is an example of using technology in the classroom to display the work of the student and share that back out to the parent, guardian, connected adult at home using a tool like Seesaw or our Parent Square tool to kind of give them a sense of what's happening there. So a lot of different experiences that happen at that level. If you think about it from a secondary level, it becomes a little bit more personalized, a little bit more individualized. I know CTE was out here talking a few weeks back about what happens at the high school. And the images that you see on this on the right-hand side of this slide is a lot of that experience. Is kids in classroom working in labs, working on very specific curriculum and materials or lessons related to some of that curriculum. So we still have that going on from our middle school to our high school from a lab perspective. We also have, again, kiddos using iPads to do either personal work, individual work, group collaborative work. At this level, we're bringing in tools like Canvas, our learning management system, and the material and the curriculum and the resources and the reading may be augmented by technology. It's not the only resource that they have to do that learning, but it's a tool and a support around what we're trying to get accomplished. A really good example with the art on the left-hand side of the image is we have two different examples. One example of a student who's doing digital art on an iPad. They're using it with an Apple Pencil to create art. And this might be an opportunity where they had no other materials in play, and it gives them a chance to explore art in a very different way. And they could just as easily do that someplace else, but we don't know that they have that opportunity. Take that from the perspective of the top left image where we have a student who's doing art with clay, and this is something that also plays out in the organization, and they're using their technology tool in that classroom to probably review a little bit of what the teacher had already told them were some of the steps and trying to reference that from the iPad point of view. So a lot of different experiences, and again, the focus here is not on the technology. The technology is just kind of this part that happens as the Wayzata experience. And if you think about all of our students, from our early learners all the way to our transition students, they all come to us with very different personal experiences and sometimes very different needs. So we're here to support and meet the needs of each and every one of our students throughout the whole experience. Whether they need adaptive or assistive type technologies, we're here to support them throughout that entire experience. And this demonstrates some of that initiative. So going down one level from the teaching and learning perspective, at the technology department point of view, we have articulated 7 goals every given year. So this is an overview of our 24-25 goals. So I'll go through these at a high level and kind of quickly here. Starting at the top, excellence in service and support. So prioritize our responsive and efficient service. So the responsive piece I pulled out here because that is feedback that we received from a district point of view on a survey more recently. We wanted to highlight it here as something that we're paying attention to at the top level of our goals. Moving down into enhancing our digital learning. So this is, again, ensuring that all of our students have access to devices, to resources, to materials, and they have reliable internet access to get to those items. Number 3, enhancing our digital citizenship. We want to make sure as our students come in, we have, again, a very articulated curriculum at the elementary school, and then kind of moving up through the system around digital citizenship, but we want to make sure that we're promoting proficiency in the use of the tools, so they're not only becoming good humans, and they know how to be good humans from a digital point of view as well. From professional development, we have a goal around providing ongoing training for our teachers and our staff. We want to make sure, just like our students, that we're providing them opportunities to hone their skills around taking technology and integrating that technology into the classroom. Security and privacy, we maintain strong physical and cybersecurity measures in the organization. It's a top goal for us in the district as the board, I'm sure, and we want to make sure that we have that articulated in our goals. The infrastructure development, so this is about investing, deploying, supporting robust technology infrastructure. That's our systems, that's our servers and all that stuff. That's a key goal of what we do here in technology. And then provide for future readiness. So trying to maintain and foster a culture of innovation. New things come out all the time. AI is one of those examples that's new to the world and something that we have to be mindful of when it comes in. How do we manage it? How do we react to it? And how do we prepare for providing those opportunities to both our staff and to our students? So that's an articulation of our 24-25 goals. It's kind of a big high-level overview. I'll step down from there into our technology operation plan. So we've had an operational plan as part of the organization for a number of years. This is a document that I share with Dr. Anderson every year. It's something that is also shared out to all of our district leaders in preparation for the next year and throughout the entire year. So it's a 4-page document. I will not go into all the details line by line. I share it as an example of what we do. And I'll bring you back to, as I mentioned on the top, the strategic roadmap. So if you look at the document from the left-hand side, you see the SD, that's our strategic direction roadmap alignment. Each one of our goals and strategies has that alignment at a high level, so we have a clear alignment back to the roadmap. And we begin to build out projects and portfolios. That's why you see hyperlinks in this document into our project management platform. In the middle, you'll see communication and outcomes. Here again, this is an operation organization communication document. So we use this again to share out with our district leadership, our principals, our student services, our SLT team to have a deeper understanding of what is the work and what is the impact, what are the risks associated, what are the timelines. So that middle section just links into documents or briefs that have already been sent out to our building leaders so they know what's coming in more detail, not just at a high level. And then you begin to see throughout the document, there's timelines, again, associated risks, priorities, and status. In this view, you see status marked as like 10% or 0% because, again, this is a 25-26. This is in preparation for the next year. A lot of the work and initiatives and projects that we have going on in technology cross over years and multiple years. We're not on a strict fiscal calendar just because of when resources come in and the time of work that we do is sometimes in summer, sometimes off, and we try to have everything ready to go by August 1 for our students. So I won't go through all the details on here. You just see that it's about a 4-page extensive document kind of outlining all the major initiatives, but I'm happy to take questions on that at the end. I'll step down one level from that into our technology in action. This is our portfolio and project management system. So in technology services in collaboration with other members of other teams in the department. We have a system that takes that high-level communication into the actual, what is the work, what are our timelines, who's doing it, and how do we get it done? It's our portfolio and project management system. Think about portfolios as groupings of projects. So if we're working on a bunch of AV projects, we have a portfolio for AV. If we're working on specific teaching and learning projects, we have a portfolio for that. So we organize those all up. Here is a 24-25 view. So this is in current fiscal year. You can see on the bottom left, we have about 51 active projects. You kind of get a little bit of visibility into what's on track, what's at risk, what we haven't quite started yet. And you see on the top left, we have about 1,450 tasks associated in those projects, and you see the completion and some of the overdue. So it's, again, just an organization, and it really helps us to stay accountable to what is the work, and are we getting it done? Are we staying on time? And we are communicating out our effectiveness here. Stepping down one level into the task perspective of this, and this is a little bit different. This is the department as a whole. And not all work that we do is tightly associated with a project or a portfolio or maybe even a major initiative. It could be maintenance in general. It could be cybersecurity related. It could be an update we're trying to do. So it's a bigger perspective in volume. So you see here we had in the 24-25 about 10,276 tasks, 9,450 were completed. So it's a lot of work just outside the project point of view. And I see that we have 35 tasks that are overdue. Hopefully those are not mine. Otherwise, I'll have to take a look at those later, follow up. So that's a task for you, just kind of giving you a sense of what the in our department. So going down one level, kind of into the technology in action, I'll pull out a few of the projects that showed up on the operational plan and give you a little context of what the work is. I'll start with the top around classroom technology upgrades. So we have a number of classrooms around the district. We know teachers move from place to place on any given year, depending on what their assignment is. And from a technology point of view, we want to give them a standard set of tools so when they walk into a room, they're not like, oh my gosh, I'm not sure where to plug in. I don't know how this works. And we try to keep it as consistent as possible with video, with visuals, with audio, with voice amplification systems. So we continue to work on that project. This year we're doing 170 classrooms. We typically follow LTFM when we can because there are some savings in that work, partnering up with our buildings and grounds crew. This year we're doing some work at the high school, Kimberly Lane, which I think is our LTFM project. And then we're reworking some classrooms at Meadow Ridge, and we're outfitting almost all of West, except for the construction that we may be doing in that area. So a major lift, 170 classrooms. It's a big project that we're taking on. The next one on the list are certified staff laptop replacement cycles. So again, this is something that came to the board a couple weeks back. Thank you for helping to move that forward. Our certified staff have devices currently in hand that were manufactured in like 2020, deployed in 2021. So they're on about a 4-year cycle or so. So we have the opportunity to get those in, get them prepped, and get them back out to our staff here starting in July, and they'll be ready for next year with new devices. So that's about a 4-year cycle for us. Most devices in the district from a laptop or computer are on about a 4 or 5 year cycle depending on their role. Excuse me. So moving on to the next one, the student iPad replacement cycle also was to the board a couple weeks back. So the iPad cycle is, again, typically about a 3-year cycle. This is a project that we do almost every year. In that 3,500, we have 12,500 iPads in the district in total. So that 3,500 a year cycle doesn't capture the whole. It's only a portion of the whole, but it takes us from our 4th grade, our 7th grade, and our 10th grade and up. So as an outcome, if you graduate as a 12th grader, you have a 3-year-old device. But we don't want them leaving the district on the last day with a 1-year-old device or a 2-year-old device or a 5-year-old device. So we have a method to our madness in that system, and we know that these devices are reliable and stable for more than 3 years. So we typically hold on to them for 4 or 5 years, depending on the scenario, and just get a longer use or resell them back to the market. So it's really a good investment from that point of view. The next item I'll speak to is Aubrey, and this is in partnership with our teaching and learning friends and working with our building principals and our student support. So Aubrey is a new system to the district. It's in support of our MTSS work. It's a new system. It's a data warehouse or a data lake. Allows for data visualizations. you think about all the different systems that we have in the district, from our student information system to our learning management system to all of our other data points, this system gives us the ability to pull that disparate set of data into a single place, allows us to visualize it, and really helps us have just an overall view of our students, how things are going, and to help us to put into place any supports that we need for them in their experience here in Wayzata. So we're happy to begin to work on it. We're excited about the opportunities, and it'll be a big project that I'm sure we'll have some more detail on in the future around teaching and learning. The next 3 items on the bottom are more operational, but important to know. So I don't know if anybody has gone through like an internet upgrade at home, or you had to call like your cable provider or whatever. It's a big project. We have 2 internet providers here in the district serving 2 different locations to make sure that we have redundancy and resiliency. Typically, these are on offsetting years, but COVID kind of messed up our years in this. So we have both of them being updated this year. It's just a good opportunity to refresh. It should be interesting. We'll make sure it's stable, but 2 helps in that scenario. Along that, we have firewall refresh, which is a big project on top of that, and then we have a network district refresh. To give you a little bit of context on how budgets play out in all of this, this is a good example. So the firewall refresh and the network refresh, I tracked back to about like 2012, 2015, and we did the entire district network refresh, including firewalls and I think some wireless at the time. The context, that cost us about $300,000. A big number, but not unreasonable. The same context, same equipment, updated technology, today's dollars, that's about $2.5 million. And that's not the whole district. So I raise that just as an important part about where I started, with funding being important, the way that we manage cycles being important, and trying to stay up on the cycle as much as possible so that equipment doesn't fall so far behind that we cannot support it. Moving on into the learning solution area. So some of these items I've already mentioned. Again, this is all about the students at the center of the learning experience. So a lot of the resources, a lot of the material, a lot of the projects all wrap around the solutions and support of the students. So whether it's the classroom smart devices or the voice amplification systems in the classroom, or the Aubrey data management system, or iPads in support of our student learning, we also have a lot of technical solutions that we support, from our learning management system like Canvas, our student information system like Skyward. These are all part of that experience. A new entry into this year, our Parent Square solution that we partnered up with our communications tool. It's a great communication tool that we deployed this year. I think it's well used and well received by both our building administrators and leaders, and I think the community as a whole. Again, that's all part of what we provide and what we support from a technology point of view. Staff development. So staff development, as you kind of remember back up to the goals, is a key goal in our area. So this is really about people on our staff who are teachers, who work with other teachers in the organization to help them feel comfortable working with current and emerging technology, to make sure there's a clear connection between what is the curriculum, what are the lessons, what are the materials, how are we going to engage our student body, how are we going to use the technology in a really effective and efficient manner. And they make those connections. They really help our teachers go through. And we have high expectations for our teachers to come in, to understand that, and to be able to deliver that. And we really try to walk with them side by side and work with them. And again, with our teaching and learning and staff development team, to help them feel comfortable using those tools. Continuing on, technology in action from a physical security point of view. So this is, it's an interesting change, I would say, in the last couple of years. Physical security used to be very much building and construction and facilities related, and has some technology components to it. That seems to have shifted more in the recent time, where it's more technology driven, and we're supported by buildings and grounds and facilities. So we've taken up more of this work and these resources. We have some major projects going on in this area right now. So our campus security camera system, again, this was all put into place back in 2015. So in the district as a whole, we have about 800 or so security cameras there for a purpose to protect our humans, our student body, our staff in our sites, and also our sites on off hours. And they all have a replacement cycle. So 2015, we're on 10 years of a replacement cycle. We need a plan. So we're starting to hit that plan right now. We're doing a replacement on our secondary cameras, and we'll work to the elementary side, providing that the funding's all there. From a physical security side, all that funding doesn't come through the tech levy, so there's some safe school money and some capital funds that's also allocated to make that work happen. So it's important to continue to have that funding to move this work forward. We're also doing some access control system upgrades. This is from a software and hardware point of view. This is getting into the buildings when they're open and not open. It's also going through a software upgrade on that system and refreshing our security badges that were last done maybe about 7 or 8 years ago. And then we're looking at intrusion detection and alarm system as part of this work in future projects. From a cybersecurity perspective, so cybersecurity also has been a huge priority for us in the district for many years, as long as I've been here. And we've had a formalized information security program in place since 2018. This is a high-level report of about a 97-page assessment that we do every single year, and you've probably seen this image before. And it provides us an S2 score, which is a very comprehensive, objective information security like risk score, kind of like, I don't know, like a FICO score or something you can imagine. So all these details about our associated risk and us minimizing that risk based on 4 major categories. The categories are on the bottom, as you see, where it says administrative controls. So administrative control would be like the people part of the process, policies, procedures, people. The physical controls, this is going to kind of cross over between the physical security and cybersecurity, where we do site visits with our vendor partner. We'll actually walk through, take a look at that site from a cybersecurity and physical security, and then we get assessed on it. And then we have internal and external technical controls. These are all the devices on the inside of our network and all the access from the outside of the network. And what this is mapping from a high-level report is how we did against that assessment this year. And again, we've done one of these since 2018, and we can map that all the way to 2024. That baseline of about 620 is our goal, and we're above 620 above 620 in all of our measures. And it rolls up into that 748 top-level satisfactory name. Now, I would call satisfactory probably something differently, that it feels like we did awesome or exceptional or whatever. But it really shows, I think, at a high level that our goal, that we spent time, effort, money, resources around trying to ensure that our cybersecurity and our privacy has low risk, and that's the best we can do, both on the physical side and the cybersecurity side. We can't eliminate risk, we can't remove it fully, we can identify it and we can reduce it. And this assessment shows that we've been doing that work along with our vendor partner to help us get that done. One thing we did new this year, excuse me, this is a long part. So one thing we did new this year was a tabletop exercise from an incident response point of view. So again, we know that we can't fully eliminate all the risk in the district, so we have to have really good response to when things come up. And frankly, incidents pop up all the time. You can think of an incident as just a compromised user account or a password or access to a system. Those things happen and we deal with those. This gave us a chance, again, working with another vendor partner, to go through how a small incident can become a major deal. So this is an outline of what the incident was, from somebody clicking onto a malicious email attachment to that fully taking over the entire district and shutting everything down. Of course, it's just a tabletop, it's an exercise, but it's a process by which we want to create some muscle memory around, okay, what can happen and how bad can it be, to make sure that we have our response ready to go and we're able to put those responses into action if something were to pop up. So this is something that we did new this year, and we'll continue to work on that in future years. From a cybersecurity incident point of view, there's a new legislation that came out in December of 2024, where school districts have to report within 72 hours kind of a major level incident to the state. I share this just so that you have awareness of it. It's not something that we've had to do yet, and it's a fairly new law. And I believe the intent behind it is to, from a state perspective, kind of know what's going on in districts, provide support if they need support, and then to share that information out at a high level with other districts so they don't get caught in the same situation. So new to the organization, we have eyes on it. Again, we haven't had to use it, but we know that it exists, and we'll take advantage of that opportunity if it were to pop up. Okay, so we're going to move on to the how section. So again, this is all about the people serving people. So in the district, we have just fantastic, I can't say enough about the technology staff that we have here. They are the best of the best, serving the best. They're here to troubleshoot issues, to repair equipment, to manage that complicated network infrastructure, to keep our systems up, reliable, maintained, et cetera. And they really show up with a "how can we help you" attitude. If you've ever had the experience with any of our team, and I hope you've had that experience where it was good, it was positive, it was empathetic. If you walk into our office at the District Service Center, you'll see it on our screens, like, how can we help you? And we truly mean that. To the building level, when we have staff at the sites, walking in hallways, connecting with teachers, they bring that same attitude, and I think they bring that same expectation and level of care in how they serve our students, how they serve our staff, how they serve the community as a whole. And they do a lot from a service perspective. Here's just a couple examples, and I've already spoke to a few of these from the physical security and the network system point of view. We also have a fully managed district fiber optic network that we service. We have multiple data centers that are part of our system here in the district, and that we also have from a virtual point of view. We have some of those information systems that I spoke to, like Aubrey that's coming on, or Skyward, or our Seesaw system, or Canvas. Mass communication systems like Parent Square that I mentioned, and then just things that you would expect from internet connectivity to telecommunications to the learning solutions. There's a whole lot of different things that they do on any given day, and they do it so very well that most people don't know that we exist if everything's just working perfectly. So our team, again, it's a fairly small team if you think about all the things that are on them every single day. We have 10 site support individuals, so they're out in sites, sometimes 2 different buildings on any given day or week. Again, they're sitting side by side, hip to hip with our staff in the building, working in classrooms, working with teachers, connecting up with anybody else who needs help on the site, whether it's Wayzata Cafes, building leadership, what have you. They're fantastic. They're that first level of support. They're the ones that you have eyes on, and they may just know that you need help by the look on your face when you walk down with a device in your hand. They're fantastic. Really appreciate all the work they do. At the next level, we have 4 help desk support staff. This is more of our district level, and they also support that site level. You'll see them at our district service center. They're picking up 5100 if you call. They're answering help desk. They're doing, if you think about all those tasks that I walked you through, they're doing some of those projects and tasks and making those good things happen. Again, just a fantastic team. Can't say enough good things about them. Our operation team, the 6 individuals there, are at that next level up. That's server systems, fiber optics, physical security. They're kind of making all that magic work and happen between all the interconnected systems. We have 4 information system teams members. So again, if you think about the Aubrey systems and the student information systems, and you want magic to happen between moving data from one system to another system, have it be right and move securely, those are the people that you want, and those are the people who are on the team who do such a good job in that area. And then we have 3 tech integration teams. So these are our teachers who are working with teachers, helping them integrate the technology into the classroom. So who we serve at a high level, 12,900 students and growing last time I counted. So a fairly large student body. We have 50,000 plus parent, guardian, trusted adults that we're responsible for in that experience. We have 2,500 give or take staff members from all different areas, from coaches to paras to teachers to Wayzata Cafes to our district leaders. We have this great community who comes in and uses our facilities, uses our equipment. We're partnered up with Community Ed. We support them as well as they come to our organization. And then all of our prospective families who show up on any given day wanting and just wanting to have the Wayzata Public Schools experience. So how does this play out from a service excellence point of view? So this is a July to March when I pulled the data, just to give you a little perspective on service from a workload perspective. So we received about 22,000 help desk tickets in that period of time. Average, typical, maybe a little bit higher, but it's pretty average for a typical year. In that sense, we typically have about 350 open tickets. If it's at that number, my team knows I'm pretty even keel and things are going okay. If that pops up to 1,000, I start stressing out. And this ebbs and flows throughout the year depending on whatever we have going on at the time and what time of year it is and what initiatives we have on our docket. Our average response time is within 9 hours. everybody loves immediate. Sometimes we pull that off. We have a goal of trying to do it within the same day if possible, but sometimes that slides to 9 hours or next day, depending on the situation at the time. We have a typical resolution rate of 2 days. Again, immediate's perfect, unreasonable but perfect. Same day is desirable. 2 days is the typical response and resolution rate. And then we have an awesome satisfaction rate. So 98% think that we are doing awesome in our job in response specifically to our help desk service and the surveys that we provide. This image just kind of shows you the same information in a different way, just so you know I wasn't making all the numbers up. So on the left-hand side, you see that 22,000 incoming help desk tickets. You see the ebbs and flows of how the year plays out from a service point of view and where those peaks and valleys are. You see the 315 in the middle that were open at this time. I think it's lower today. And then we measure other things around just trying to have really clear service level agreements. And simple things like how fast we can get back to people just on that first contact or first response. So they know that we're listening, they know that we care, and we know that their problem matters to us. From the service excellence point of view, kind of back to that 90% awesome or happy, I think, as it's framed here. So we sent out 8,821 surveys over the course of the year. We got 297 responses back. That ends probably not great, but it's the ones who responded. So in that 98% said that we're awesome, we're happy. We had the 1% and the 0.3 who were not. We have a protocol for follow-up on this. We either find the person in eye to eye, say, sorry, we messed up, we're human, what can we learn? Or we follow up with an email, phone call, and we just try to understand how we missed the mark, and we try to feed that back into the system so next time we can do better. And that's just part of our process and our program. So pulling this all back together and wrapping it up, again, starting from the top level, mission focus, purpose, focus, teaching and learning, and the student experience is all about what we're doing here. And technology plays this critical part in what we do in the learning experience. It helps us to personalize the educational experience in preparation for our students in their future. Provides for accessible and adaptable technical needs for our students across the entire system. It allows us to update educational resources and maintain them. Update that classroom standard equipment for our teachers, replace aging, devices from a student point of view or a staff point of view, and have them on a managed cycle so we're not dealing with equipment from 5, 7, 10 years ago that can't be used, supported, or managed. And it provides for a system of safety, security, and privacy protections, both on the physical side and on the cyber side. It's critical for the infrastructure and operational needs. It's really key to have all that foundation in place so we can make all the other stuff happen. And it's truly essential for the people, that support staff that show up every single day to work really hard with a purpose, with a mission, with really core values to support our student and our staff in the good work. That is it. That's the high-level view. I can go into as much detail as you want as an outcome. Really appreciate your time, and I'll take any questions that you have.
Thank you, Wade. One thing I can vouch for is how quick your help desk is. I have had several incidents where I have called them and they usually pick up right away, and or they call back if they are not available. And usually my issues have been resolved within less than 1 day, within 24 hours. So great job for that.
Thank you. That data tracks in. I appreciate that.
Yes. And any questions, comments for Wade? Yeah, Sheila, go ahead.
I recently had a chance to make use of the help desk and top-notch service. So thank you for that. You talked a lot about, what kinds of things technology is used for in the classroom. And, obviously we're trying to make sure our students are prepared for life after school, and there's technology in our, in our lives now. And we had a great conversation at a recent teaching and learning committee meeting about, when it's used in classrooms. How would you respond to a parent perhaps that was maybe worried that we're using iPads too much in the classroom?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's really thoughtful. So my response to that would be, I'd kind of start at the top, and I'd likely ask the parent or guardian, had they had a conversation with the teacher, with the building principal, Had they seen the experience? Kind of what was going on from that perspective. I think it's important to land back on there because the teachers are in the classroom and they're the ones who are kind of creating that experience, and they're very, I think, mindful in how they balance that approach. I think from a district point of view, we have a role in trying to provide high-level guidance about here's materials, here's the tools. They're not expected to be used every day, and we have an understanding, as students progress through the system, that there's going to be different levels of use, and there needs to be a balance. The teacher is there in the classroom at that time, and they really have kind of that ultimate control about what's going on, what's the lesson, what are we trying to prepare for. And I think it's on us to try to help them, both the teachers and the parents, balance that use of technology. So again, it's very on purpose, and it's not, all the time for no purpose at all. So I try to guide them through that, and also try to share some empathy with it. It does kind of work out, and we do want to make sure that they're have that human connection, and as they go through the system, there'll be some lessons that are learned along the way.
Yeah, well,
I'll piggyback on Sheila's question. Question I have: what if family decides that this is too much and they would like their student to be on paper? It might be questioned for teaching and learning too. Can it be done with amount of usage and how much students nowadays supposed to turn in by iPads? Can it be done, and can we have procedures such way that family has a choice? To be honest, some students are using technology not for learning purpose; they're using it for something else. So, is it possible?
Yeah, good question. I'll start, and then I'll hand it off to Dan or Miller. I think to a point it can be done, and I think to a point it is done. I think one of the examples I shared today is we see in our classroom, there's a balance of what they're using from a material point of view. There are still books in the classroom. There are still, the demonstration of learning on paper. It does get a little bit more difficult, I think, as students progress through the system at a higher grade level for that to happen, because frankly, the curriculum, the material, the publishers, and the things that we work with are also digital. So they're coming to us from a digital point of view, and they're just as difficult to get out if they're not in digital. So it's possible, but I think it's complicated from an answer, but I'll let Dan answer.
Yeah, I think as Wade illustrated, as the students progress into the secondary level, it would be difficult. And I think as one of our commitments is to prepare each and every student for post-secondary success, and to have not experienced technology in a way to research, in a way to turn in work, in a way to engage with text, because almost every publisher provides it in a digital format first. Some don't even provide a book any longer. That would not be preparing our students for the world they're going to enter in once they leave our high school system. So I think we have to be responsive to age and balance the ability to use that technology and how we use it with their age. And then we also need to remember that we have them for about 7 hours in a day, and that it is a partnership with our families and our parents. And so when we think about screen time, engagement with their learning tools probably isn't where our concern is, but engagement with social media or with inappropriate sites that we don't have is where our concern is. And so we will always want to be partnering with our parents to make sure that we have skills and spaces to block that kind of usage, and that responsible usage of technology is part of our curriculum. So those are all the pieces that just top of mind come to use. And then again, we're just very age appropriate and responsive to our learning needs. Wade, if you've got.
Well done. Good answer.
yes,
Thank you. This is fantastic. I'm going to build on the preparing students for the ever-changing global society, although I liked when you said the ever-changing local, national, and global society.
Yeah.
That was an ad. My question is, and I think I've seen it, do we utilize students at all to help with kind of help desk stuff or other things? Or what are the ways you have an amazing staff? My guess is that they could model a lot for our students.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Thanks for that. We partner with students in two ways that I can think of off the top of my head. First of all, we partner with the high school around their Compass and cybersecurity program. So we're typically mentors in that space. We show up and we support the program as a whole. And then we just kind of work in general just around that because it's a sensitive nature of the class. So we have that connection. And then what we've been able to do more recently at the high school, they have a internship program. So we've been able to secure over the last 2 years this fantastic student interns. I mean, it's a real work experience. We hire them, we interview them, we hire them, we pay them. They're in our district service office, and they do the work, and they do the kind of the in between level 1, level 2 work, and sometimes it's intern work. And in the upcoming summer, we'll have 2 back. They'll work with us, and they'll be unboxing the iPads, and they'll help set up the teacher devices. They'll do that type of work. So it's real life experience. And I would say the last 2 who worked with us, they've like, hey, we want to come back and work with y'all, which I thought was a kudos to the team and help them do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Wade. This is always, I'm always amazed by how much is going on from a tech side because it's so encompassing. So I have a comment and a question.
Mhm.
First of all, I think it's amazing that you have a 0.3% unhappy rate, and you still chase that 0.3% down to make sure that they are happy. And that really speaks to your commitment to each and every. And so I want to say thank you for that. My question is, you talked about responsible digital citizenship. And I'm wondering, is that somehow, so this is also for Dana too, are they separate lessons, or is it kind of integrated throughout curriculum as they go, so they're learning it bit by bit? Or because I know there are a lot of parents that have been asking, how are we teaching our kids to be responsible?
Yeah, really good question. I'll start and then I'll hand it off. So we do have a defined, articulated curriculum at the elementary around this topic. So I think we do, and we're pulling the kids out, and they're in the classroom, and they're with a technology teacher, and they're going through specific lessons. We probably do it best at that level. Once they hit middle school, in the middle school model and the schedule, I think we've had a few more challenges with recently. So I think that's an opportunity. Most recently, I was at East talking with principal and student support on what can we do next year. So I think our focus next year, well, what can we do in the middle school to have more articulated lessons, either in the classroom or as a breakout through advisory or whatever else we're going to do. And then at the high school, it just gets a little bit more interesting from how we deliver that material. So we have some thoughts. We're beginning to develop this for next year. This is one of our goals as we go into, and one of our projects actually on the operation plan is to try to have more of a elementary to secondary, here's what we're doing, here's like the program, and just try to have more materials, and then also connect with our families on what resources we can use for them to support. Because to Dana's point, we know that this doesn't always play out into 7 hours at school, and some of the behavioral lessons that need to be learned are outside of school. So if we can share our materials and our learning and our lessons with our families, I think they'd be grateful for that experience.
Let me tack on to that. I think that's really important to share with families because though we now have a formal cell phone policy or electronic device policy, things are just going to shift. It's not that behaviors and whatnot are just going to go away. They're going to shift. And so to help parents understand so that those expectations are set from home and coming into school is going to be really important.
Yeah, you're absolutely right that the behavior, we haven't changed behavior from how technology is being used. It's just moved, it's shifted to other things. And we see that through the use of current district technology from that perspective today, because if you don't have your cell phone in your hand, you may find some other ways in which you're communicating to other students. So we've seen that shift, and I think it's important as we go forward to help continue that dialogue.
And I think just to add on, you did a great job with that. Speaking, teaching and learning talk there. We also have Wade spoke very directly to direct ways that we teach, but to your question, it's a yes and. So in a lot of spaces, it's also embedded into our curriculum. So because they're using technology or they're doing research and evaluation, you think of some of the science presentations you'll all be going to this year, that work has to go through like Dr. Lackner to understand what is responsible technology use, what is responsible dissemination. So we really embed it into the curriculum as well. So kind of that both formally talking about digital citizenships and then in their curriculum while they're using it, continuing to embed that kind of conversation in there as well.
Thank you so much for coming by. I appreciate, when you were with us a little while ago in Finance Committee talking to us about the leasing program and just really the track record you have of being so open and informative to us as board members with technology in the district, physical infrastructure, as well as instruction as well. So thank you so much for coming by.
Valentina, yeah.
Thank you.
One more question. After hearing that we need to prepare students for future, my question would be, did you consider about moving to laptops for example, for high schools at least? Because that would be prepping them for future. I mean, at professions, not that many professions are using iPads. I understand iPads, iPhone, Apple products are quite expensive, but probably there can be different products used, but it's in laptop version. Did you consider?
Very good question. So big picture, long view, we started our one-to-one iPad program back in 2012. We've been doing this for that long. And the market has shifted and the access to resources has changed. And even at that time, Chromebooks didn't exist, to give you some perspective. One thing that we learned through this process, I think it's a really good question. Should we provide options for laptops at the secondary level? Great question. We've looked at it a little differently from a K-12 point of view, where we're taking material, we have kind of a consistent experience, we have management services support around the device. From a cost perspective on an iPad, we're talking about a $400 device in comparison to really the least expensive, fully functional laptop, which is about $1,000 out the door today. It's a bigger investment over a longer period of time with a lot more moving parts. We've found that we have a better return on investment from the equipment and the service and the support and the management and control that you want from a board around that device in a K-12 experience. We augment that a little bit, and I shared some of that in the slide from a lab perspective. So if it's very specific things you're doing, they get that experience from a full computer in a lab. And we also offer like a bring your own device opportunity at the high school for students to request with support by the building. So if there's a need that's beyond their device, they can bring something else. And that's not good for everybody, I understand that, but it's us providing something for everybody and them having other opportunities to try to meet that need. But it's also a good question. So from a cost point of view and from like a system point of view, we've continued to maintain the iPad as a standard today. But it was considered, to answer your question. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, thank you. Wade, I had one question, but I'm going to piggyback on Valentina's question and ask you, many students, I would say a lot more than 50% of the students in high school probably have a laptop at home maybe. There are some that cannot afford one. Do we get requests from these students once in a while to provide them a laptop?
To provide for a laptop? Good question. I can't say that we do. I mean, I'm just kind of thinking through any recent requests, and for the most part, the iPad in their hand with the keyboard connected to their curriculum and the work they're trying to do meets the needs. I mean, we haven't had any experiences that come to my mind where that hasn't met the need and they didn't have another way in which they needed to accomplish a task. We have filled the gap from an internet connectivity point of view. So that's been something that's been constant since during COVID and then after COVID, where if there's not high-speed internet at home that's conducive to the learning environment and being able to do the work, they'll come to us and we will provide access for them based on requests and student support. So we fill that gap, but not the laptop gap.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Then my question is, you mentioned a state statute which requires you to file a cybersecurity report. I don't know how often, but it's a requirement, but does the state provide any funding, anything to fight that, or is that something that is all on our own, but we are required to? It's one of those mandates which has no funding, right?
That would be defined as an unfunded mandate.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yeah. We're expected to do it, but there's no funding to do it.
no funding to it. Okay. Thank you so much. Anybody else has a question, comment? No? All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Wade. Appreciate all you do. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
All right, next up is the communications report. Director of Communication, Amy Parnell, will introduce our Spring 2025 Community Survey Results presenter, Peter Leatherman.
Good afternoon, Chair Sahoni, Superintendent Anderson, and members of the board. It is my pleasure to introduce Peter Leatherman of the Morris Leatherman Company, who will be presenting the results of our recent community survey. We're longtime partners with Peter and Bill Morris, and it's really great to have him here with us this afternoon. He has a wealth of information that he'll be sharing with us. Just for a little bit of background, the district has partnered with the Morris Leatherman Company, a Minneapolis-based market research firm, to conduct a community satisfaction survey for about every 3 to 4 years. That maybe got extended a little bit further over the pandemic. Since the 1990s, we figured that out this morning when Peter was with our strategy leadership team, sharing the results. So the insights gathered through this survey and former surveys have been really invaluable in guiding our continuous improvement efforts. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Peter. We have a presentation. He's going to share the results and then is happy to answer any questions that you have.
It's a pleasure to be here with you. It's kind of funny this morning figuring out how long I've worked with the school district, and I looked around the room and only one person remembered the superintendent from the 90s. So, man, like my kids say, I am old. Just to review with you what we undertook. Is it on or?
Should be.
Oh, no, it got clicked off.
Oh, it did.
Perfect. All right. We spoke with 400 randomly selected residents across the community. 400 samples, always projectable to plus or minus 5% in 95 out of 100 cases. Once again, the margin of error is determined by the size of the random sample, not the percent of the population. So 400 in Wayzata, 400 in Hennepin County, or 400 in the state of Minnesota will always be plus or minus 5%. Average interview time was 11 minutes. Non-response rate was 6.5% once they realized we weren't voter IDing them. And this survey was completed back in March. And there'll be one number coming up in a little bit just to keep in mind when we think about planning forward. This survey was done before all the discussion on tariffs starting April 2nd. Where that goes and how that impacts people's economic certainty is important to note. And I'll bring it up in 2 slides where we'll look at people's financial security. Putting up some demographics. First off, how long has the person resided in the Wayzata School District? 46% have been here for 10 years or less. 54% have been here for over 10 years. Typical residents been in the district for approximately 9 years. 17% have a preschool or an infant in the household. 31% have a child attending the Wayzata School District, and then 67% are empty nesters. And once again, empty nester does not imply an age. It's simple lack of presence of a child. So a 23-year-old could be in here without a child. They're an empty nester. So your constituency is about 1/3 of the sample. When you look and put things into perspective, 2/3 have casual contact, but it's not the main clientele that you serve in the community. 20% are renters. Homeowners under 400,000 were 33%, over 400,000, 45%. Women outnumbered men by 4 points in the sample. If we continue with the age demographic, 25% were 18 to 34-year-olds, while 32% are over the age of 55. So the typical resident's about 46, 47 years old. Always been a highly educated school district. 60% are college graduates, that includes postgraduates. 11% high school graduates or less, and then 29% have some college experience. I noted the timing of the survey, and that's for the next question. Over the last 2 years in Minnesota, with all the funding requests, last year 41% of levies and bonds were successful in Minnesota. And what the correlation is, it had much more to do with the financial security of the household than what the district was asking for. What we have found in the data, 2023 was kind of the peak of financial insecurity, the first half of that year, where we actually had 60% indicating they were financially stressed. First quarter of 2025, we'd gone down to 45%. So for that as a comparison, you're about 8 points lower than what we're seeing across the state in the first quarter. I don't know where we're going post April 2nd. At this point in time, I have some surveys coming off, not enough to draw any sort of conclusions or correlation. I'll be doing a statewide in May that'll give me a better understanding. But as you plan forward, every district's in the same situation. The long ago superintendent asked me when's the best time to do a survey. And I said the Monday before the Tuesday of the election. Surveys are snapshots in time. It's kind of difficult though, as you have to plan, you have to go through review and comment, you have to do all those sorts of things. So to give you the picture, you have less financial insecurity than we were seeing in the first quarter of 2025. And then you can see the geographic distribution with Wayzata, Orono at 8%, 11% Minnetonka, and then we divide Plymouth North and Plymouth South by the wards in the city. Nobody knows what ward they live in. We know what ward they live in from the list, and so we allot them appropriately. So before that, with so many new board members, any questions on methodology or demographics before we get into the results?
How does this compare to other school districts?
Just the overall demographics?
Yeah.
How you're different? More highly educated, less financial stress. The households with children, that's often a common. It's pretty typical for second ring to be right around 30%. Households with children. When you get into like Minneapolis, St. Paul, you're going to be in the high teens.
What was ours again?
31%.
Okay, so
Yeah,
it's
it's
typical
31%.
households with children.
When you get out to the exurbs in the fourth ring, it can go to 40, maybe even 45% is it's kind of this rippling effect out for households with children. So pretty much in line with households with children. Yes, sir.
Stay on this slide here. You mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, that our main clients are the 31% with the Wayzata School District children, but aren't 67% of the empty nesters also taxpayers who are worried about their taxes and who contribute?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
So
Yeah.
they cannot be ignored, right?
No, I'm not saying. I'm just saying put into context when you look at data, because you're going to see some results. You're going to have 31% paying attention very closely,
Yes.
and then 67%. Absolutely.
And then if you go to the next slide, the financially stressed and financially comfortable. This was done in March, right?
Yes.
I don't know if you covered this, but that situation is probably different now.
Potentially.
Okay.
Not enough to draw a conclusion, but I've done now, today I ran the 5th survey that was done post April 2nd
Okay.
for a school district, and it has not spiked, the financially stressed.
Okay.
I don't know what to make of that. I've had some discussions with people. Like I mentioned, the height of the financially stressed. I mean, we've been asked this question long ago When I started doing this in the 90s, we asked income. And we're like, in about 2005, we thought income doesn't match up. This isn't what we're looking for. So we came up with a 4-part question, not asking what your income is, but thinking about your income and your expenses. How do they match? So the highest level of financially stressed we have is going back to the recession of 2008, 2009, where we got to about 65, 66%. Over the pandemic, the first 2 years, we had an increase, but we didn't have the increase we expected. And we actually, when you own your own survey company, you can ask questions. And we went in depth with it. And we found out people were telling us, yes, my income might have been impacted in the first 2 years, but my expenses were. I couldn't go on vacation. We couldn't go to sporting events. So it helped mitigate that. It was in 23 with inflation and everything that we got to that 60%. Like I said, it's coming back down. We're in the 45%. But to keep in mind, pre-pandemic, it was about 25%. So we're still higher than we were pre-pandemic. And the key for that and why it impacts so many school districts' funding requests, the higher that number is, creates more people in a school district that would support something they simply can't afford to. It's not an option. They don't have the $100 in their pocket. So it will be, I think everything is so fluid right now since April 2nd that it's going to take some time for this to set in. This isn't like 2023. People were going to the market and filling up with gas every week. They felt it every week. When they feel this impact, we don't know at this point.
Thank you.
Couple of questions I have about timing. Looks like obviously questions probably were not asked during the weekend, correct?
Correct.
So it's about 10 days effectively.
Yep.
And during what time of phone calls were placed?
We phoned from 10 to 8.
10 to 8, okay. Because looking at the age, it's kind of interesting. Quite a bit of younger age look like had a conversation, but do all of them actually own the house and feel the finances, so to speak? One thing, if you are living with parents, you are earning money, but you are living with parents, you probably don't feel pain yet. Another thing, when you are owning the house, paying and all, do you know that statistic?
Yeah, we have 20% that were renters, 80% are homeowners. And we'll talk about property taxes in a couple minutes.
No, can it be that nowadays I'm hearing that there is a generation who are still staying with parents? Looking at the age, how many of them are younger who had phone conversations, can it be that some of them were still in the household, but they are not the owners of that house? Living still with parents?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like if you have a 21-year-old living in your house. I see what you're saying. Yes, potentially. The only qualifier was you had to live in the district and be over 18 years old.
Mm-hmm. Because my point is, if you are living with your parents, you don't feel pain yet. You are not paying for that property. Or maybe you pay some if your parents are trying to train you for life. That is...
Yep. Yeah, the delineation we make those, though, everybody can vote over 18. And so we don't differentiate in the data on who can or cannot take the survey. It's just over 18 because we're looking at voters.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Peter,
yes, sir.
One more question. You asked about the phone. So the whole thing was done on a phone, right?
Yes,
sir. Survey. In this day and age, when most people do not even pick up the phone unless they know who is calling,
they don't even do that.
Right.
Yeah.
So is that something that could have been done differently, like an email survey or?
No. The only way to get a scientifically valid sample is to have a random sample.
Okay.
You cannot have a random sample in an internet survey or a mail-out survey.
Okay. Because
it requires self-selection. You opt in and you get return rates of 15 to 25%. And there's inherent biases first, like on an internet survey. In Minnesota, 5 to 10% of people don't have the internet. It's a very specific demographic. So they're not going to be able to take the survey. On the flip side, I make the joke, my 24-year-old doesn't know where the mailbox is. Much less is he going to go to the mailbox, take a survey out, fill it out, put a stamp on it, and then mail it back. It's never going to happen. So you have these biases. But then within that, post getting the results in, what the research has shown is it used to be 25 years ago, those that respond to self-selected surveys were more negative. And it makes sense. If you have an issue, you're going to make sure people hear about it. There's one company that does mail out and internet surveys. And what we're finding, if you look at their results, is especially parents and staff try to win those surveys. There was one school district in Western Minnesota that did an internet survey on a bond referendum. It came back that 65% of people supported it. So the school board thought, great, a lot of support. They put it on the ballot, it lost by 20 points. When you look at the demographics, it was 74% parents. Well, parents were only 22% of the makeup, but parents took it, they were going to win this survey. And that's why you have this bias. Everybody has an equal chance. To your point on telephones, you don't even answer the phone if you know the person half the time. And so what we do, 90%, you get about 1 in 10 pick it up on the first call. Then you leave messages. You introduce yourself. It's why it takes 2 weeks to make the calls. The bad pollsters, and you see a lot of them every presidential year, they phone over 2 nights. And whoever answers the phone, that's who they talk to. And then they reweight the data. Well, my phone bank could call this sample in 2 nights. It would be 70% over the age of 65, and it would be 75% women. That's who's most likely to answer the phone the first time. And so we set up, with this one, I could look at specifically, typically in a metro area suburban school district, over 50% of these calls are completed by appointment. So if somebody's saying, hey, no, I'm running into hockey, I don't have time, a polling company would say, okay, I'm just going to the next one. Well, I don't want to bias the sample against somebody with an active lifestyle. That's why we keep it in the field for 10 days, and we say, okay, when is it convenient? And so they'll say, hey, call me back at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'll be at my desk and I can talk to you. And that's how you overcome these biases within the sampling.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All good? All right. Survey says, a couple questions up front. What do they like most about the Wayzata Public Schools? These 2 questions are open-ended. They can tell us anything, and we collapse them down into categories. So what leads your list? 25% good teachers. I'm going to combine a couple categories. If we look at excellent academics, good academics, and high test scores, that's 34% in that category. And if we look at variety of programs and broad curriculum, that's 21%. Those are the 3 traditional buckets people fall into when they think about their school district. Who's teaching, what they're teaching, and the quality of the teaching. You've always had a hierarchy in the Wayzata School District, programs and curriculum. Then teachers, then it's the academic quality. I was in Austin, Minnesota last night. It was teachers by a mile. It varies from district to district on and what the residents prioritize. But your folks, it's those 3 items in that order. Now, if we ask what they like most, we always follow up with what's the most serious issue facing the district. 2 hit double digits. 14% lack of funding in large class sizes. And an open-ended question, the first thing I look at is anything hit 25, 30, 35%. You have 1 in 3, 1 in 4 people coalescing around a response. That's a serious issue in a school district. You have nothing at that level. The lack of funding is the #1 issue in the state of Minnesota in this question, but it's typically about 20%. So you're a little bit lower. And we're going to go a little bit further into people's opinions on the adequacy of funding. Large class sizes vary. It's based on experience. Typically, it's in the high single digits, 7, 8, 9. So a little bit on the a little bit higher than the norm. Lack of discipline, drugs and alcohol at 8%, and then a few things in the single digits. I would go down to the bottom, the nothings. These are the boosters. There are no problems in the Wayzata School District, according to these folks, much to everyone's surprise in the room. That's about 3 times the norm. You've always had a strong booster core, and these folks are different than unsure. They are supportive. They have high regard for the district when we go through the atmospherics. They're supportive of potential funding requests. This is a booster core, and this is a helpful position to be in, to have basically 3 to 4 times the normal amount of boosterism. Now, an overall evaluation on the quality of education. I've taken out pre-pandemic results now. It's not a fair comparison to think back before 2020 on almost any public opinion question at this point in time. And so where we're at right now is 92% rate the district favorably, 9% only fair or poor. You were at 95%. What we have seen, this has dropped. The norm right now is 80% in Minnesota. It's a 10-point drop from where we were pre-pandemic. So you're at 12 points higher than the norm. You're also atypical that you have an increase in the excellent. The excellent bounced back up to in 21. This is the macro issue. As I mentioned with SLT, and some people started shaking. The 2021, once you got past mask versus no mask, in-person versus virtual, people's concern landed at the big picture of the quality of education. Every district has seen a drop. But like I said, the norm is 80%, and the slide is from excellent to good and good to only fair. You do not have this. You have this wall at good, and now you're building back on the excellent rating, up 9 points from 2023. Regardless of what they think of the quality of education, if they compare it back to 4 years ago, do they think it's better, about the same, or worse? This one, it's 50-5, a 10-to-1 ratio. So even if there are concerns, if there are shifts, things are getting better. They're moving in the right direction the further we get away from March of 2020. Some specific perceptions. First off, does the district spend taxpayers' money effectively and efficiently? Up 12 points to 82%. Norm on this right now is just under 60%. So it's more than 20 points higher. Does the resident get a good value for their investment in the schools? Absolutely, 92%. Do they believe schools increase their property values? They've always seen the correlation in the Wayzata Public Schools, 92%. Are they satisfied with decision making? You see, we're pulling away from the pandemic and the decisions of 21 and 23, and we're back to where we were for you pre-pandemic at 84%, agreeing with the satisfaction with decision making. Do they trust you to do what's right for children? A high since the pandemic, 89%. Does the district do a good job of involving the community? 86%. It's 15 points higher than the norm. And this is really important when you're starting to have discussions about funding requests, that the community feels involved, that they can have a say. That 86% is at the high over the last 3 years. Is the district honest about spending? Absolutely, 83%. And then the last question on this chart is, I would support a property tax increase to protect that investment. The key on this is the no, because we don't say operating levy, bond referendum, we don't give them a dollar amount. That's your core opposition. They're against any property tax increase. You can see in 2021, was a more tumultuous time. You had 31% core no. It dropped down to 15% in 2023, and we're at 22% in 2025. We want that to be under 30% at the start. Now, if it's under 30%, does that mean everything passes? No. The lower the number is, the more willingness there is to have a discussion about a property tax increase. So it's a good basis to start from as you discuss funding request. If we look at the board and the administration, the board, 83 to 15. Norm on this right now, the board rating is just under 60%. So the board approval is 20 points higher than the norm. The administration is 76-21, almost 4-1. The norm favorable to unfavorable is 2-1. Principals 79-20, and then teachers 91-8. So on the governance, the administration, and in the school leadership and the teachers, very strong ratings across the board. Overall assessment of financial management, this is a high over the last 3 years, 81%, with only 18% rating it negatively. The district has a large reservoir of goodwill and trust when it comes to financial management. Property taxes, though. Economic insecurity and property tax hostility are the two issues that are impacting districts everywhere. And you have it here also. This is the reason that even though you're still at 22% core no, it was a 7-point increase from 2023. The total taxes is the dark green. 63% rate their total taxes high. That's up 13 points in 2 years. We've seen it everywhere. You are not unique. The norm right now is about 60%. The high I have this year is one district that's 77% high. There's one district that did a survey last summer and did a survey this January and had a 20-point increase in people saying their taxes were high. And the only thing that changed is they opened up their property tax statement November 15th of last year. Now, if you go to the light green bar, where we ask about your perception of school taxes, the high goes down to 51%. So it's a 12-point shift. That's the good news. The good news is they don't blame the school district if they're angry about property taxes. It's the city or county. I always make the joke, in the good old days, I used to ask, who do you blame? And then cities and counties got really upset with me, so I don't ask it that way anymore. But I know they don't blame you in this. That's the good news. The bad news is the cities and counties can raise the tax levy and don't have to ask for a vote. You're the only real show in town that has to go to the voters for a tax. So it's something to think about. And these are the two issues, the economic insecurity and property tax, that it had shaped the last two cycles of elections for schools and is going to shape it in 2025 and 2026. Is the district adequately funded? You're the only district right now that has a majority of people saying yes, 60%. Part of it is driven by the fact they look around and they see all these other districts that have had massive budget cuts. And if they're not hearing about huge budget cuts here, then you must be adequately funded. There also is a political component. If you look back to the 2021 result, that survey was done after Governor Walz came out and talked about the largest funding increase to education in the history of Minnesota. Well, not surprisingly, 71% thought districts adequately funded. So this fluctuates based not only on political, but what we're finding right now is about 45% saying yes, 45% saying no. People don't have any idea. They hear what St. Paul says, they hear what the governor says, and then they hear about districts making $5, $10, $15, $20 million of cuts. They don't know where the logic is, and so they're just divided. They don't know. If they heard the district was going to ask for a property tax, are they for all, against all, or are they persuadable? You have 53% of people who have made up their mind with no information. Because I haven't said operating levy, bond referendum, we haven't talked a dollar amount. They're just for it or against it regardless. This is typical. This is where we're at in Minnesota right now. You start out 3 points ahead. 3 points core yes versus core no. The key is obviously going to be the 47% persuadable and how they break depending on the components of the project. On our let's make a deal question, 25%, when we ask for a dollar amount, say nothing. We always want that to be under 35%. We have 27% at $6 a month, 21% at $12, and then you have 23% at $18 a month. The typical resident's willing to support just roughly somewhere between $150 and $180 a year at the outset. I always say, school boards say, is that number set in stone? It is absolutely not set in stone. It depends what is in the package. It can be, there's elasticity to it. I've had districts go for double or triple because what they're asking for is highly supported. I've had districts go less than the amount, but it includes something like an ice arena and it's going to fail. So it just is meant to give you an indication. The further away you go from that amount, the components and the makeup of the package are critical in order for success on election day. Now, do they believe the buildings and facilities meet the needs of educating today's children? Yes, they do. 86% say yes, only 11% say no. But it is a soft yes. It's 72% say yes, only 14% say strongly yes. So in the discussions and the planning for this, it's not to say that things are in bad shape and need to be fixed. It's how do we go from yes to strong yes? And in doing that and in planning is to link it back to what they value. And you know at the top of the list, it's the quality of education, it's the programming and the curriculum. And you tie it to that in order to get people to shift from yes to strong yes.
Peter,
Yes, sir.
question. Can you go back to that slide? So a few slides ago, you showed a number of 14% of survey respondents saying big class size is a concern.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of surprising. Maybe they don't realize that facilities are not enough to have lower class sizes. So this might come from lack of knowledge of that fact.
Yeah, we're going to see it in a minute. Yeah, absolutely. And that'll be an opportunity leading in. The good news doing a survey at this point is you have a long runway to sometime in 2026 for the planning process and the communications effort. How important is it to ensure comparable spaces across buildings? It's a core value in the Wayzata School District. 79% say it's either very or somewhat important. This is a communication, though, piece, because when we ask folks, do you believe that school buildings in Wayzata have comparable spaces? Yes, they do believe that. So they believe that it's important, but they believe that it's currently happening. And so if there is a deficiency, if there are buildings that do not provide comparable spaces, it will be a powerful argument for a bond referendum because you have almost 80% of people saying it is important that comparable spaces are available for all students across the district. A couple of perception questions, and we actually developed these. I was thinking about this back. It was 2013 referendum. In the bond referendum, we asked folks first, over the past 5 years, do you believe housing construction in the Wayzata School District has increased, remained about the same? The 69% believe it's increased. Do they believe that it's going to increase in the next 5 years? Absolutely, 70%. So the narrative is set. Back in 2013, Amy had to go out and take pictures of all the developments in North Plymouth because people in Minnetonka had no idea what was happening in North Plymouth, okay? The narrative is set. They believe it's happened in the past. They think it's going to continue in the future. Now, what about the impact on student enrollment? Is that link in place? It absolutely is. 64% believe that student enrollment has increased, and 72% believe that it will continue to increase in the future. So both of those narratives are set. You don't have to show people where the growth is or anything like that. It's then a discussion about the specificity of the solution, as opposed to setting up what the problem is. So does the district have enough space to accommodate the growth? At the elementary school level, 31% say no. At the middle school level, 40% say no. At high school, 37%. And then at early learning, it's 19%, but you have 16% saying unsure. So if there is an awareness at the outset of the discussion, there's higher levels of people saying at the secondary level, both the middle and the high school, that there's not sufficient space. But you still do have majorities indicating that yes, the district does currently have enough space to accommodate the growth. We tested a few facts just to set a baseline and understand the level of knowledge. And this is why, I couch it in 31% have kids, 67% don't have kids. That's part of the narrative here. And your awareness of facts, you're never going to have 100% aware of these facts. If you call an election and an off year, you only have 75% even aware they're voting the next day. So your threshold's not 100%. It's to get it somewhere between 60% and 3/4 that are aware of these facts that help drive the need on Space Home. So what is the first fact is open enrollment, which allows students in other school districts to enroll in Wayzata Public Schools, has been closed since 2012. That was a common theme back in the bond referendum of 2013, and you have 56%. Perhaps some messaging and communication on that, because it's always been kind of seen that you're building because of open enrollment. The next statement with the highest level. In the past 10 years, resident student enrollment in Wayzata Public Schools has increased by more than 2,000 students, nearly 19%. 54% are aware of those facts. 49% were aware that currently the East Middle School has capacity for 840 students, West Middle School capacity for 900, while Central Middle School's capacity is about 1,575. 46% said they were aware over the next 5 years it is projected the middle schools will see enrollment growth. East Middle School is expected to be at or near capacity, while West and Central Middle School will be by over capacity by more than 100 students. And then the lowest level at 45%, resident student enrollment in the district is projected to increase an additional 9%, or 1,125 students in the next 5 years. All of those, I think to me, the foundation is that last one of what the overall for the district is, and then plug it in to getting down to the specifics and the impact at the middle schools and the capacity issues that will create. And at the same time, just reinforcing the message, you've had 2,000 new students in the past 10 years. So if you have 2,000 and you're going to add another 1,125, you're going up 3,125 or approximately 28% as a messaging piece to it. And then finally, how do you message? Well, the principal source of information. This is open-ended, they can tell us anything. The district newsletter at 25%, the district website at 23%, email at 17%, word of mouth at 12%, staff at 5%, cable, social media, building newsletters scattered, and you had 8% that said nothing. I don't have no source of information. Those are obviously non-parents. The good news for the district, and it's why it's important to have a robust communication method, is you have basically 2/3 of people that rely on the school district for information. And the critical portion of this, what's missing from this list that was there in the 90s and maybe 15, 20 years ago, is the local newspaper. Well, it was highly relied upon. Now, they've either disappeared or they don't cover districts like they used to. And what numerous districts, there are many districts in the metro area that the #1 source of information now is the grapevine. Because the communication network, they got rid of the printed newsletter because nobody reads print. And those sorts of things, they made those calculations. And what they found is when the newspaper disappeared, it's old guys like myself who used to read the newspaper. We're not going to go to the website. Now we just gossip. We become like young parents at hockey associations and that sort of thing. And so there are some districts that have 35% of people saying, hey, my principal source of information is word of mouth. You have, because the communication is in place, and you can see it play out when you ask people what is the most effective way to receive information. If you look at this just print versus electronic, do they want to hold something in their hand? 31% say a mailed newsletter, 8% say the local newspaper. So you have almost 40% saying, I want to hold something in my hand. The district provides that. Do I want to push a button on a computer? 23% say the website, 22% email, 9% social media, e-newsletter. You're at almost 60%. Very different demographics. Okay, households with children, the younger the person is, the more reliant they are on electronic. On the flip side, and the group that gets lost when local newspapers disappear, is to have still a strong print piece. Both will still need to be. Communicators have prayed through the, like I say, I've been doing this since before social media, before all of this. And when this all started coming, and they're like, oh, I can't wait to get rid of the newsletter. This is going to be fantastic. And you just can't do it at this point. Maybe when I'm long retired, it will get to that point. The warning I always give, though, is I can always tell when a district does not have at least some sort of mailed newsletter, because what happens is uncertainty goes much higher on questions of how do you rate financial management and those sorts of questions, because like I say, if you don't have a kid, you're not going to go to the website. The website is a pull communication, and you become a mile wide and an inch deep with knowledge. It's all out there, but it's on the user to access it, and they only access it when they have to. So I would just say overall, in closing, extraordinarily strong report. The district has really started to make positive improvements that we don't see in other school districts 5 years post-pandemic. And as the district starts planning for a potential bond referendum, the facts are in place that weren't in place 12 years ago. They're aware of the housing. They're aware of the student enrollment, and they anticipate it to continue. Now it'll be in the planning, the facilities group, however you move forward with it. You don't have a solution seeking a problem. The community's aware of the problem. Now they're looking for a solution. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Peter. More questions? Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. It's really been special in our community relations committee, facilities committee, finance committee to really be engaging on these very important topics. I just have a couple questions for you. The first involves kind of the potential for which people have to be persuaded. So we're talking about the 22% of individuals or 25% who are an absolute, well, is it an absolute no on any kind of property tax increase? Are they persuadable at all?
No.
They're not. Okay. All right. Thank you.
No. Can I just say one thing to that too? You won't need to. It is important to remember there's some districts that will be in the point that they're going to have to change people's minds. This won't. They can be against. You don't need 100%. This is always with an election. It's always 50% plus one.
Yeah.
And that 22%, a lot of it is about taxes, and it is about economic insecurity. And you can't, in the statewides that I share with AMSD and MASA and all the acronyms, we ask people, if you had $100 for a property tax increase, do you want it to go to the school district, the city, the county, the state, the federal? Well, people say no to the federal and no to the state. A majority of people still want to go to the school district. But we have more people saying, I don't have the $100 in my pocket. Okay. So you're not going to be able to convince them that they have it. That's kind of, maybe a year from now, hopefully the $100 is back there and they have $200. Or they're $200 more in debt. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, definitely fair. Then if you wouldn't mind going back to the slide that has kind of the, are you aware of these points?
Yep.
So to what extent do we kind of see individuals who, how do I say this politely, don't want to seem ill-informed, so they just say, yeah, I know that.
It's a great question. We call it the halo effect in Minnesota. When we're asking awareness facts, people don't tend to lie. There are two facts people lie about. Did they vote and do they recycle? Nobody wants to admit that they didn't do either of those things. But on these sorts of just factual questions, folks are pretty honest. Now, they might not know specifically that the capacity at the middle school was 875 to that level. But the point of that question was to understand the disparity between one middle school being large and the other two being small. So there might be some sort of nuance in the yes, but I don't expect, it's always a good, my favorite is if you ask folks 6 weeks after who they voted for, the person who won, even if they won by 1 vote, will have won by 20 points because people hitch their horse to winners. And then you also have people that didn't vote that want to say that they voted for the winner. So it's that sort of event. But on the awareness of facts, not very much.
Yeah, and we definitely saw that in the 74 Senate election in New Hampshire, where a guy went from winning by just a few votes to winning, by dozens of points. So that definitely does exist.
Oh, yeah.
The final question I'll ask has to do with the AMSD MSBA communication you said for your statewide survey. They will share it with us. You'll be sharing with districts. Will we have access to those numbers?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, AMSD has all the information, and you have it.
I think your presentation's on the AMSD website.
It might be, yeah.
Okay,
If it's not, Amy can nudge me for it.
All right, thank you so much.
And it was done. Let's see, the last one I shared. Heck, it's outdated by now, but it's still fascinating to see where we're at. But absolutely, yeah. And I did a smaller one for MASA just 2 months ago. So if that's not available, I can get that to Amy for you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay, I have I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand go up.
It's fabulous to see you. Thank you. I have 3 questions for you. And some of them are a little random, but when you have the how do people get their information, we have some neighboring districts that have podcasts or they use kind of that. And I think that unlike social media, they could skew in different things. Do you ever get people talking about, I got my district information from a podcast?
Not as a primary. If we do an open-ended as a primary source of information, some districts, and YZ has gone more in depth in communication, where instead of just asking primary, most effective, we'll go through a list and say, is this a major source, minor source, or not a source? And the podcast, there's a few districts have started to add that in. You'll have more people admit to that than social media. Nobody really wants to admit they get information from social media. But I do think it is an effective strategy. I think it helps humanize a podcast very much.
Okay, thanks. And then my other 2, I was interested to see the amount of people that think we're fully funded, and then in your commentary talking about the other districts that are doing budget cuts or cost containment. Is it normal that, because we went through 3 years of cost containment and it was not an easy journey by any stretch. Is it normal for communities to have such a short memory about that?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not. It can not only be short memory, but also there are 3 types of districts when it comes to cuts, where it takes for them to go from yes, you're adequately funded to no. Some you just have to cut fat, some you have to hit muscle, and some you have to hit bone. I've had districts go all the way to hitting bone, saying, okay, we're going to have to do 4-day school weeks. And residents say, great, no problem. And that still doesn't show a need. So it varies from district to district. But, on this one, on the current adequacy of funding, it is a lot of people looking elsewhere of what other districts, and they're hearing, okay, this district made busing 2 miles. We didn't do that. So it could be worse. Anoka Hennepin cut half their district office.
Right.
That's not going to impact people saying their district's not adequately funded. That district, it has to be in the classroom. So it varies, but it is not as driven like it was historically by St. Paul and the narrative that comes out of St. Paul anymore.
Okay.
People dismiss St. Paul.
Okay, thanks. And then thanks for indulging 3 questions for me. The last is I want to follow up on when your comments at different times about districts that say, if you're going to tax me, it's going to be the school district, or the school districts are the ones that are most responsible. And I want your perspective on framing that within the recent legislative action that allows for school districts to auto-renew their levies. And so I'm wondering if you've done surveys in some of those communities that have auto-renewed their levies, and if you have any insight about whether that community data about the trust in school district taxes remains firm based on that new ability.
Absolutely, it has not changed.
Hasn't changed it at all?
Hasn't changed. No, I mean,
Okay.
we tested, we were testing auto renewal for like AMSD in the 90s.
Wow.
It's always been supported. It just took a long time to get the legislature to go along with it. You know, I think over the past 15 years, I might be wrong, but I think only 2 school districts have failed an operating levy renewal through all of this time. So it's just kind of seen as a no-brainer. The funding is in place to continue it. You know, there are a couple school districts right now that the board is uncomfortable with that authority and worries about it. I'll be presenting to one of them in 2 weeks, and once that's public, then we can see perceptions have changed. But for those that have auto-renewed, it's a big yawn, because at the end of the day, what it matters to the person is their property tax and what it costs them.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, all right, thank you. Oh, sorry.
Thank you for coming. This is really, really useful information at this juncture. I have a question about the empty nesters. So it's really interesting the way that you phrased it, is that empty nesters just means they don't have a kid at home.
Yep.
Do we have any sense of, are they people who have graduates versus incoming kindergartners potentially?
If they have preschoolers or infants, they're not empty nesters. They would be just completely.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good
Yep. Let me just, sometimes we ask a follow-up. If you say no, have you had children in the district? We have asked that as a follow-up. We did not ask it this time. We did ask, do any relatives currently attend? 38% said they did. Historically in the district, this might have changed because with all the growth in residency, when we have followed up in the past and they say they don't have children, and we say, have you had children in the past? It's been about 50-50 split. And so it was like, you know, so you'd have 50% of the empty nesters would be what we call alumni parents. And then the others really have no connection with the school district historically at all.
Okay. I have one more question comment. So what I noticed is, you know, Sarah brought up that we had our cost containment, I think probably earlier than many districts in the state did. And I think the thick of it was 2023. So that we had a question that was, are you okay having a tax increase to protect investment? In 2023, there were a lot of people who said yes in our district. Do you think there's going to be, or have you maybe in the past seen when there is cost containment, that question goes up? The response to that question goes up?
It's just so I understand your question. So if you've made cuts, does it make people
want to
likely
invest?
to support
Yes.
a funding increase to avoid future cuts?
Correct.
Basically, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, what we have found, the current state of public opinion when it comes to education, you know, 15 years ago, people didn't want to pay more for the same. People now realize it costs more to have exactly what to maintain. Cost of living, inflation, all of it. It's part of where folks are at. I had a district I presented to a couple weeks ago that was looking at a tech levy versus an operating. And the operating levy, it was about maintaining class sizes, maintaining programming, providing future budget or avoiding future budget cuts and providing financial stability. Or the tech levy was about devices and some other things. Overwhelmingly, people said, I want to invest in the operating as opposed to this. I want to maintain what we have in order to do an enhancement. And it even applies, like I presented at the City of Minnetonka last night on cities. Do you support a property tax increase to maintain city service? 80% say yes. Do you support a property tax increase to enhance city services? 75% say no. It's really kind of the mentality, and people just understand it costs more. We'll be able to move past it. It's exactly what happened in the recession, 2008, 2009, 2000. Basically, the only thing passed were renewals, operating levies to maintain, and bond referendums for safety and security and deferred maintenance. That was it. You got 2012 to 2020 before the pandemic. Then the economy was better. You were able to have a conversation about those enhancements. But people are, and having cost containment shows, the most powerful message is the district has already made the cuts. And that is effective. Because that harkens back 20 years ago with Jesse when he said, make them make cuts first, and then make them show that they're accountable. That's kind of ingrained now in Minnesota.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Peter, I have one last question. I still feel concerned about two things. We asked them about $6 increase per month, 12, 18, 24, 36. How close is that to reality? And if it is not, how do we gauge their acceptance? Let's say it's $100 a month, $150 a month increase, right? So
No,
that's one. And let me continue with the second one, probably associated, I don't know, maybe not. The fact that we have 14% with no or concern about class sizes, and then the same question I asked earlier, 60, 70% think that we have enough building, enough space.
Yeah, it will come down. And as the planning process moves forward, typically districts will do another survey that gets into the specific components. And so at that point, we'll retest that tax tolerance and then go through a series of components. I think at one point the list was 15 items long. Would you support a property tax increase for X, Y, Z? So you can see what I call a leading indicator, what drives support. Is there anything that's an anchor that hurts support? And it can go up. You can have Richfield about 10 years ago. The tax tolerance was $10 a month. We tested 10 items. It had 66% support or higher for every single one of them. They went for $27 a month, almost triple. But because everything was highly supported and made sense, it passed 65-35. So it's kind of the next survey will fill in the pieces once the planning comes into place to help shape the component. I can tell you at the outset, the guardrails that I see already in all the districts planning bond referendums this year is they're prioritizing safety and security, deferred maintenance, CTE space, classroom space for growth. They're not supporting athletic facilities. Anything they're supporting what they're deeming have-to-haves versus nice-to-haves. Many districts, last night I proposed in Austin, you have to do 2 questions if you want to do athletics. Cambridge is going to be doing the same thing. That if you include those bottom items, the athletics, and I was arguing with a football coach. I wasn't arguing, but I was saying, if you're going to pit the football locker room versus safety and security enhancements, you're going to lose. It's just how it is. Those are the priorities and the guardrails. But as you flesh out through the planning process what those specific things are, it'll be helpful then to help shape what that tax tolerance is.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me.
Yeah, Valentina.
One more, it's more like a comment on question 52. It's kind of interesting to pay attention at that 35% putting aside little or no, have little or no savings, 35% of who were answering on a phone call. Managing comfortably, 44%, and very well, 19%. Obviously, if you do math, it'll be like 63% are living, comfortably, but 35% are putting little or no saving.
Yep.
It's 35, so it'll be, a little bit more than 1/3 of who answered the phone call. And we also found out that 1/3 who have kids, actually 2/3 don't have kids. Who were respondents, they don't have kids. I'm wondering to what degree it is correlated, age, income, and being able to put aside some money for savings.
Absolutely. It's a very good question. And that's why that question has impacted so many school districts, because the group that has the largest number of people saying they're financially stressed are parents. That's what's hurt school districts. And in an off-year election, you need 80% parent support. And so what happens, the higher that number is, parents are overrepresented. They feel the pinch more than the empty nester. And so that's a critical piece in consideration. But that 37% is fluid. It's going to be fascinating to see what it's going to be in the fall. It's moving in the right direction down. 60% was very difficult to overcome. But yes, it is younger folks and households with children.
All right. Thank you very much, Peter, and thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. All right. The next item on the agenda is the superintendent report, and Dr. Anderson will update the board on the strategic roadmap and district goals.
Good afternoon. Oh, it's good evening. It's 6:05. Sorry, I'll make a correction. Mr. Chair, members of the board, thank you for giving me an opportunity to give a brief overview of some of the strategic work that's been getting done in the school district. I'll do my best to accelerate a little bit here, given we added one agenda item tonight as a result of moving our meeting from last night to tonight. We were able to bring in Peter to give the report that you just heard. So you've had two really good reports tonight, one of great depth within one of the slices of the pie of our larger school district in the technology report, and then another unique niche in that it's community feedback from both parents and, I have to remember the terms, empty nesters or folks that don't currently have students in our schools. So a couple of really interesting and hopefully reports that you enjoyed hearing from. So we appreciate that information. As you know, school boards provide superintendents with guidance and direction and establish goals or focus areas, of which there are really 4 for me that the board provided to me in last year's evaluation. So I'll speak a little bit to that. And again, my work is sort of more that high level overview and oversight of the school district with many departments and individual school buildings with lots of goals, lots of initiatives. You've heard reports every month from individual schools and or from other program areas. You heard from Community Ed a little while back. I think we had 3 teaching and learning reports during the course of the year. So there's really a lot of grounded data in regard to the work that we're doing within the school district. As you know, our strategic roadmap drives the work for the district. This was established, the first one really back in 2011. It was revised in 2015, 2019, and 2023. A lot of it has remained very similar, if not the same. Our mission has not changed at all. Our vision statements have been modified a little bit. Our core values have stayed pretty consistent. In the most recent review, we did do a pretty good overhaul on our strategic directions, of which there are 7, and I'll be spending some time speaking about those. We also have a supporting document, our equity commitment that was approved back in April of 2021, which really amplifies our core values and also reinforces that mission statement of each and every, which has been the heart and soul of our school district really for the whole time that I've been here and well before. I know, as well as making sure that each and every one of our students, regardless of their interests, their talent areas, the things that they're most interested in, we work really hard to provide an outstanding experience and a set of academic and co-curricular programs. So the 4 goals, and I won't read this word for word, but the first one relates to the creation and finalization of the district operational plan. The second one, engaging with partners and our community to gain a better understanding about changing student, staff, and community needs. I think the report you just heard is an outstanding example of one way that we engage with this and help meet this goal. Monitoring student growth as it relates to facility needs and class sizes. I'll speak to a little bit more about this in the detail pages that follow, but certainly we've been involved in that the whole 17 years I've been here. It seems monitoring enrollment. We're up, I think when I started in fall of 2008, we had 9,600 students in the district, and now we have 12,800. So we've grown about 3,200 kids over that 17-year period. My guess is in the next 17 years we'll grow some more, but probably not quite that much because we're going to run out of space before I think our student population could go up that much. And then just continuing to prioritize academic excellence and ensuring, again, there's that infamous statement of ours, excellence for each and every student, and focusing on a commitment to student growth at all levels. And I'll share with you just kind of a quick overview. And you had a chance also to read the written report. This PowerPoint reflects a lot of the key points with that, only with less detail. So as I indicated before, you've heard a lot of reports during the course of the year from individual buildings. You've heard about the building instructional leadership teams and the work that we're doing in each of our schools. These are those 7 strategic directions. I'm not going to read through them because there's a following slide for each one of them that'll have just a couple of quick bullet point component parts to the strategic directions. The first one being ensuring a high quality daily experience for each and every student. And the 2 focus areas are goals or strategies that we're focusing on from a higher level. And I would just say that I think the reports that you heard earlier from teaching and learning earlier in the year, that you just heard from technology to some degree, probably what you just heard from Peter Leatherman as well, but through other types of mechanisms, whether it's school newsletters or communication efforts, you hear a lot about what we're doing with each one of these initiatives. So the first one is doing our very best to ensure that all children are ready for school, and kind of the flip side of that coin is making sure we're ready for them and responsive to what their unique needs are. And so that's sort of at the beginning of the conveyor belt, so to speak, and also ensuring that our students are college and career ready. You had a great report from the high school here a while back in regard to the broad range of programs that they provide at our high school and helping to prepare kids for that post-high school experience. Second strategic direction, delivering high quality instruction leading to high academic achievement for all students. Again, I think the reports that you received earlier from our teaching and learning department and the ongoing work that they're doing to support principals, teachers, teacher leaders within the district all line up and relate to these 4 key areas, ensuring that our K-12 students are strong in that reading level. You've heard a lot about the READ Act and the professional development and the literacy coaches and the work that we're doing to help reinforce and support high quality literacy instruction at all of our grade levels, but probably heard more in that regard with our elementaries. We also provide a broad range of EL services and special services as well. Increasing the district's overall performance on MCAs, all students graduate from high school, and all racial and economic achievement gaps between schools are closed. So those are ongoing initiatives. I think in some form or fashion, each of those 4 probably have been in place for the entire time I've been here. And they're continuous focus areas, not only in our school district, but I think in all schools and school districts across the state. Third one, recruiting, hiring, supporting, developing, and retaining high-quality staff. As we know, having high-quality staff that engage with our students is the most important thing that we can do. So our teachers and their support teams and working in tandem with their principals are really critical for the ongoing success of our school district. Some of you have probably heard me say this before, but in my days of being a middle school and a high school principal, I used to tell PTA groups the most important thing I do is hire outstanding teachers. And if I don't do that well, nothing else I do really matters, because that really is so important. It's the place where the great majority of the learning occurs, in addition to all the peripheral programs and support programs that our students are involved in. Also, the second one, at least 85% of our staff will assess, this kind of a wordy one, but at or above the embracing level on a metric that we developed in regard to responsive learning experiences. And we've established that for about a year out, May of 2026. And there's a side note in there. This is in alignment with recent legislative change in regard to teachers being assessed and having this as part of the annual evaluation for teachers as well. Strategic direction 4, supporting the social, emotional, and developmental needs of students and staff by hosting a continuum of school-based mental health resources and supports. You're probably aware of many of them that we have in place. We, I think, have outstanding student services teams, even beyond our special services programming, but with our counselors, social workers, our deans of students are deeply engaged in supporting all of the needs. We have strategic partners such as Relate Counseling Services and other organizations that provide support and assistance for our students, all collectively help meet the needs of our students beyond their academic work and academic needs. So we're greatly appreciative for the synergy of that collective effort. Learning and improving from community engagement, strategic partnerships. Goals or strategies for this are creating a strategic community engagement and partnerships plan. Again, you heard a really good overview a little bit ago about the effectiveness of the communications that we send out and different ways by which we do meet the needs of our community. And I know Amy Parnell and her team in the communications department work very closely with all of our staff to be responsive to unique needs that might crop up in a building and or across grade levels if there are new curriculum initiatives or things that need to be communicated about. She and her team do great work in putting together communications in that regard. And ensuring families are identified and are connected to the school district. You're probably well aware that we've done some expansion, modification, change to our Welcome Center and the way that we reach out and welcome parents and new families to our community. A closer connection to not only the finance department, but also the community education department. So there are ways for community ed to connect and provide outreach that are different than what we might be able to do in the more standard K-12 programming. And we've, I think, continued to strengthen that concept of a Welcome Center, and it's in its first or maybe part of a second year of really modifying and changing some of those strategies and approaches. So we look forward to continuing to develop that. And really wanting to make sure, and as you heard, 2/3 of our residents in the community don't have students currently in our school. So I like to think, and I try to reinforce and encourage the fact that our school district is for all 75,000 residents, whether they have students in our classrooms currently or ever, to provide them the community ed experiences, the connection to the school district. And we're thankful for the fact that even those that don't have children currently or students currently in the school district remain very supportive for us, and we fare well when compared to a number of other school districts. So we feel good and very appreciative for that support. This one seems ongoing and forevermore, focusing on enrollment and facilities. I've spoken a little bit about enrollment during the time I've been here. We've built 2 new elementary schools, a new early learning school, added a significantly sized wing onto our high school, added classrooms onto several elementary schools, and I think I mentioned this, but we built a new early learning school too. I think I mentioned that before, but I wanted to make sure I didn't leave that out. So we have been very busy with bricks and mortar and expanding our footprint of our facilities. And every year I tell PTA groups in the fall, our facilities have never been better. And it's true. I think all 17 years, every fall, we've started out with improved or expanded facilities that keep kids safe and provide great learning environments for them and great place to work for our staff. Aligning budgets to strategic directions, and I think that's sort of an ongoing process where annually, as we put our budget together, we do a review and make determinations about what our anticipated revenues are going to be and what our expenditures are, and how do we find efficiencies to ensure that we land in a good place at the end of the fiscal year. And then focusing also on improved or new data management tool. So you're familiar with the MTSS. Did I get the acronym right? I usually mix those letters up, but I got it right this time. And ensuring that we're tracking our student progress really well. So we have a new software that we're going to be implementing. I think it's called Abre, and it'll be a really valuable tool for us as we continue to expand our engagement with students and interventions to kind of the pre-referral systems to special services. And that tool is going to help us. So we'll be in the process of implementing that here in the coming months. And then strategic direction number 7, which is aligning internal district processes and procedures to improve communication, decision-making, accountability, and collaboration, and resulting in our always chased after goal of operational excellence. And ways that we're doing that is a continuous development of our district operational plan, and we've talked about having an oversight committee. I've kind of opted not to create yet one more committee because we have lots of committees, lots of meetings, lots of opportunities for engagement with teammates and others in the community. So rather than that, we're probably leaning more toward our SLT group and or other district leadership groups, providing guidance and insight. And I consider even like our individual built teams as part of this because that's where we collect and harvest a lot of the data and information. So it isn't always creating more, but it's learning from what already exists and how do you harvest the best insights from the inputs of a broad range of staff across the district. So Dana Miller and I and a few other staff members make regular visits to the built team meetings at least twice a year for each, if not 3 times, and also doing some August prep workshops with the built teams and then engaging with them at the end of the year to see how things went. And then creation of well-defined organizational flowcharts. I think departmentally for each of the SLT areas, they did a really good job of refining these. So I know Amy Geis has copies of those for as much as anything internal use, just to help clarify, to bring forth greater efficiency. How do we, or who do we go to for a specific challenge or project or thing that we're working on? So that's kind of a quick flyover of our goal number 1, or the development of the district operational plan. And again, I think it's hard just to say, here's the document, here's the plan. It's kind of everything that occurs within the school district. This one relates to that community partner engagement, goal number 2. I won't read through that whole list, but again, it was included in the document that I provided you before. But I don't know, I could probably create a list 4 times that long of all the different ways that our leadership team and school board members and teacher leaders and principals engage in a way that partners with the community in every effort to help us understand the changing needs. We do want to be responsive to the changing needs of our students and our staff members and our larger community. We're a big organization with a lot of moving parts, and sometimes being quickly responsive can challenge us a little bit, but there aren't many good things that came from COVID. But one I cited earlier was being able to use Zoom meetings. I suppose that was one win, but I think also our ability to be adaptive, responsive turn on a dime, so to speak, and take in new information and then have that confidence to move forward and make a change where needed. So these are all some, different engagement partnership opportunities that we have. And, you probably have some of your own come into mind that, oh yeah, we could have added this or that, and ways that you're involved. And of course, we can't ever underestimate the value of the grocery store engagement and the hardware store and everywhere else that we run into our constituents, where we take those opportunities to engage and learn about how their kids are doing in the school district. Goal number 3, monitoring student growth as it relates to facility needs and class sizes. There's a broad range of things listed there on how we do that. It seems like every week we have 2 or 3 different types of convenings, if that's a word, to talk about facilities and our enrollment and how we can best accommodate it. In fact, today in our SLT meeting, I think we spent at least an hour talking about one school building and how we can be responsive to their space challenges and programming needs. And we do dedicate a lot of effort on that. The second to the last bullet point, I think, is kind of an important one to highlight. So our work is really focusing on expansion of our existing facilities and considering, what are some ways that we might be able to either maximize the current footprint or add to it. A second one is remodeling of existing facilities. So as you know, we're going to have a pretty significant project starting at West Middle School to, again, expand the facility. It's kind of both of those first 2 points listed there at West Middle School. And then eventually, much related to the survey results that we had here a little bit ago, building of new facilities. And specifically, we've been talking about the possibility of elementary school number 10 and middle school number 4 for a long time. And it kind of got pushed to the back burner, I guess, during COVID a little bit, but it's alive and well again, and we're already seeing some facility challenges and limitations early on in this process. So I do think our growth will continue. It's a real thing. We're going to have to be responsive to it and find ways to ensure that we can accommodate that growth. And then just that final bullet point, I think you're all aware, but we worked with TeamWorks International to do our attendance area changes in our enrollment study. We're doing a complementary follow-up enrollment study with Hazel Reinhardt, who's done a lot of those for us over the years and for many districts. And primarily because we are anticipating the possibility of putting together a relatively large facility package. We want to have the best information possible from as many sources as possible to demonstrate the need and help ensure that we're in the best possible position to educate our community about the needs. And we think that yet one more report, which you should hear the results of at the May work session. We're anticipating that Hazel will be able to come out and present her findings from that report. So we look forward to that. And then goal number 4, prioritize academic excellence for each and every student, a commitment to student growth, et cetera. There is listed for that full goal. I've listed a number of ways that we've done that. I've referenced it prior to. I would like to just point out that the thing you once knew as the world's best workforce now has a new name, although I think we still call it World's Best Workforce sometimes, but it's the Comprehensive Achievement and Civic Readiness Program, or the new acronym is CACR. Did I get all that right, Dana? Thank you for your help on that again today. We've heard that along the way, but I think every time when we try to find the new acronym for World's Best Workforce, we have to go look it up again, because it hasn't been real well ingrained in us. But anyway, those are all ways that, again, much like the reports you've heard from our individual schools, from program leaders, those are ways that we prioritize and track academic excellence and of course, seek to continuously improve with that. With goal number 4, kind of continuing with that. So this was some of the ways that we collect information and have metrics related to it. This is just a list of those reports. I think I expanded it maybe a little bit in regard to what I included in the written packet, but I think it's pretty consistent with what you saw before. I won't read through all those. You remember all of the different reports that we've had during the course of the year. Principals coming with team members and oftentimes students to highlight the something or some things or the great things that are happening within their school. I think this was really a great enhancement to our school board agendas when we went to this monthly reporting of, in regard to different program areas and school reports. It's a great way for you all to get to know the principals better. You get to know the ones in your buildings where your kids might currently be going to school really well, but to just get an opportunity to engage with our incredible principals and teacher leaders and teachers across the district is really helpful. So I did the best I could to kind of fly through that. I reference here that the most likely date for the next update will be at the July board meeting, I would assume. Probably not June, maybe June. But at that point, maybe I can bring a little more detail in regard to each one of these areas. But I wanted to give you a quick check-in, high-level flyover of where we're at and some of the great work going on. As you know, that report could have probably had another 500 bullet points in it because there are so many great things happening in the district. Very involved, very busy people that work hard each and every day to help bring forth the very best they can for the students and their families in our community. With that, I'll hang up and listen until I'm asked a question, and then I'll be responsive if you have any. And I'd invite my team members to help out as well if anything comes up that I don't have a quick answer for.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. That was a very detailed report. I appreciate that. Questions, comments? Yeah.
Well, I can start. Thank you so much, Dr. Anderson, for coming to us. It really was, I think, helpful for us to be able to engage with you during the superintendent evaluation process and then every step since. This is a very informative set of presentations you've left us with, over the past several months, and all the extra information is very helpful. I'm grateful for the work. I'm grateful how it reflects what we discussed during your evaluation, and the extra content just really makes us proud and really makes us grateful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Heidi? Yeah. Yeah.
I'm wondering, what can you comment on about district service and feedback mechanism? If you can explain more.
Well, I think the survey results that we just heard from in regard to what Peter Leatherman provided with the community overview of the responses that he shared, I think that's been a really good gauge for us over the year. The interesting thing and the helpful thing is that we've done that survey about every 3 years, and there are a lot of questions that are the same each time. So we have kind of a running conglomeration of, the sentiments within the community over time. So that is probably the most comprehensive, large-scale survey that we do within the district on a regular basis. I think, and maybe Dana, you can help me a little bit with this in regard to some of the surveys that are done at the building sites. And we used to have a real formal engagement survey that we did regularly. I don't know that that's still in full form like it used to be, where we would do that annually or on alternating years perhaps, but Dana might have a better feel for some of the ways that we collect information from students and families.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Anderson. A couple years ago, we did go to a lot more in-house surveying with Qualtrics, which is a different program because of the flexibility, and it was also a cost containment measure for us. So Dr. Lackner and her team of one do a lot of that work for us. To give you an example of some that we've been doing this year, the team has worked full credit to Jennifer Whitworth, and our department has worked really closely with the high school to develop that portrait of a Wayzata graduate. And I think the last time that Tyler Shepard and team were here, they talked about that, but really aligning then at the end of each course, students take a survey on the areas of the portrait of the graduate that they believe they were supported in. And so we're able to gather data in that. And one of the goals we're looking at for the new CACR, formerly known as World's Best Workforce, is to be able to track that data and say, are our students, as far as being college ready, able to show results? Are we able to show that, quantify that through that survey? So that's one of them we've done this year. We've also, with regards to the middle school schedule and the middle school changes this year, surveyed our parents, surveyed our students, surveyed our staff. Those were all created by our department as well, and calibrating that work. We do the student engagement survey, the student experience survey twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year, depending on the building, and calculate that. So when we come and report in the fall, the World's Best Workforce, which we'll call CACR now, when we come and report that on the fall on that student data, that's all from survey data on stuff that we've done in-house as well. Off the top of my head, that's the biggest ones right now. I'm sure Dr. Lackner will text me in a minute and say, you forgot, boom, 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 and she will be accurate. But that is part of the work that we do. And we try to be really responsible to principal needs. So the high school one was because that was something they had a need for. Middle school one was something they had a need for. So we do our best to be responsive. One that we want to take on and need to work on is a survey to our current 6th grade parents going out. We had some parent input regarding their 5th grade, what they would have liked to have known coming from 5th grade to 6th grade that would have been helpful. So we're going to survey our 6th grade parents to find out, what would have been helpful to you. So that's something we can do to better prepare that transition from 5th to 6th. So that's a big transition for us. So that's just an idea that came up actually from a parent that then we've been percolating on and are working on that as well. So.
You have one more?
I was very impressed by comment about technology department that even though the negative survey was, if you don't mind, can you
0.3%? 0.3%.
0.3%. What do we do to find out? I know that we are far better a district than majority surrounding districts. We have student growth, but what do we do to find out if students or teachers are leaving, to find out why are they leaving, so that we can retain them more. We can retain them.
Right. Yeah, that's a question that's come up periodically, is, doing an exit interview or, finding out why people may have made different choices. It'd be interesting to do the same for why some choose to come back or that have returned, which we have some too. So, I don't know that we do a lot with that, but oftentimes there will have been informal feedback to principals along the way where, things that I have heard is perhaps the school setting is too large and they want a smaller school. They weren't able to have the, I don't know if I've heard this one, and I was going to say flexibility for off-campus types of programming. But, there are just different family needs or that people will choose for different reasons. I think there are there obviously are faith-based schools that some families will choose that for their children. But we don't currently have, unless I can be corrected by one of my colleagues, a formal process for surveying each family that leaves, or maybe surveying each family that comes back to us or enrolls here. We oftentimes do hear informally from new families that we chose the district for the schools, and I think I've heard some of you even say that along the way. And so we have, I think, a lot of anecdotal informal, but I don't think we have a formal process for exit interviews of families or students. Something we could consider.
If I just pop in, Jen Welk will often in the finance committee when she's doing, or in facilities too, as she's doing her feedback about numbers, she'll add of the students that left, 12 of them enrolled in schools out of state or out of the country or other things. And so it's not a formal, but we do hear kind of those ongoing reports about who's coming and where they're going based on their enrollment trends.
Right. So in other words, there are lots of reasons for exits other than dissatisfaction. But that would be some. People find other schools that they think are a better match for their child's needs. Some take one child to a school for that reason, keep the other ones here. So, I've seen that also.
Okay. Heidi?
So I want to say thank you. I know that preparing a presentation like this takes time and energy. So, and we ask you to put those resources towards us. So thank you for that. It's part of the annual evaluation process. And so it's important for us to get this update along the way. And as anyone knows who's developed annual goals, things shift. during the course of the year, and priorities shift. And it may not align perfectly every single time. And so, what we thought was going to be a priority at the beginning of the year, things have shifted during the year, and your time and efforts have had to go to many things this year. The most important piece of all of this, in my perspective, is that you've given us lots of awareness as to how things are going. Your update, we've seen 3 TNL presentations. We've seen an in-depth technology presentation, community ed, finance on the regular, culinary, early ed. We're getting our updates, so I really appreciate that. It's important to hear about the progress. And as we all know, there are significant barriers to the work. So thank you for that. And board colleagues, this is part of the evaluation process. So if you have any questions for Dr. Anderson, I encourage you to reach out to him with those.
Okay, thank you. All right, I have just one question. It's something I saw that was kind of new in, I think, goal number 4. I had heard about this, and I believe my colleagues also got a copy of the results of the what was that? It was if you go back to the slides, goal number 4. Educators thriving survey. So can you, I don't know if the board has been involved since then, other than just getting a copy and an invitation to the webinar, the meeting, I think sometime late last year. I had a meeting somewhere else, so I could not go. I don't know if anybody else went, but we did get a copy of the slides of the PowerPoint presentation. Can you talk about that a little bit and let us know why the board is not involved in that?
Well, I think it was primarily intended as a staff survey.
Okay.
And information was made available to principals and leadership teams that were developed within the school to review the information and to analyze that and determine how they might be able to use that within their schools to address concerns or challenges, or to continue doing the things that were reinforced in that survey as well. So I consider it complementary or supplementary information to the work that the built teams are doing and that the principals are doing with their student support services teams. And it's really probably in a broader scale, more tied into and under the umbrella of our goal of continuous improvement and seeking feedback from constituents, kind of in alignment also with, how do we survey and assess the sentiments within the buildings and utilize that information to help strengthen it. So I think that is kind of more of a staff initiative and probably not as much related to school board work as other types of survey feedback like what you heard from Peter Leatherman earlier tonight.
Yeah, so and you think that is that still ongoing, or is that done?
Yeah, it is.
It is, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Anybody else have questions, comments? Thank you, Dr. Anderson.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody want a break? I need a 2-minute break, so can I ask for a 2-minute recess?
So moved.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll come back.
I second it.
Okay, thank you for that break. I appreciate it. Okay, so the final item on the agenda is school board reports. And first, Director Pryor will give an update on the status of school board members' visits to school buildings. Sheila?
Thank you, Chair Sahoni. Board colleagues, this topic has one that we've been able to talk about once previously at the December organization meeting. At that time, we were able to kind of gauge board member interest in this topic. Since that time, at a more recent teaching and learning committee meeting, directors Cater and Ayers and myself, we were able to hear from Dr. Anderson and Dana Miller after they had some initial conversations with principals. And we kind of realized at that time that it would be helpful if we as a board could have, maybe a document to provide to the principals that kind of outlined the purpose behind our visits, just to kind of help with visit planning and that kind of thing. So I have this, draft of reasons here. I can read through them. My hope was that during this meeting, people could give, feedback, suggestions. If, we don't get through everything today, send me something via email, with the end goal, again, of giving this to the administration and the principals. So this is just a draft, just to kind of get the conversation started. Reasons for school board members to visit schools are observing the outcome of policies, understanding needs and opportunities, gaining building level perspective, building relationships, demonstrating commitment, celebrating positive accomplishments, and showing pride as a member of the board. So again, this is just a starting point. I would welcome feedback from my colleagues.
Okay, thank you, Sheila. Just to reiterate the process, correct me if I'm wrong. So today you presented this, and we are giving the administration opportunity to come back and tell us why this is great or why we have concerns, if necessary, in the next work session, if possible. And then after that, we'll probably bring it up for a vote at the board table. That is my understanding. Okay.
I don't know. I mean, this is, again, getting the conversation started, because as a board, we have few opportunities to
Yes.
talk with everyone together. So
Yes.
if that is the process,
Okay. So
Heidi,
Can I ask a question on that?
on the process itself?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Is there I'm not sure that there is a reason for there to be a vote, because we already have a policy in place that allows for visits. This is just for a process around developing, for our principals to understand what we are hoping to gain from a school visit. But we already have a policy in place.
Yes.
So I'm not sure that there's anything to actually vote on.
If there was a policy in place, why were some members refused a visit to a building? So that is my question. If there is a policy in place and there is no vote required, that's fine with me. I mean, if there is no vote, that's okay too. But if we do go forward without a vote, how do we determine that a majority of the board is okay with this?
that would be my question, is if everybody's in agreement, I don't know, fine. But if somebody doesn't agree with this, how do we kind of come to a consensus and have a agreed upon, purpose statement?
And in terms of transparency, this has to happen here at the board table, obviously, right? No, not to violate any open meeting laws, etc. So normally, ideally, I would like no vote, general consensus being built, but there may not be that happening. There could be some opposition. I don't know. I mean, it could be a 7-0 yes, it could be a 7-0 no. I have no idea. I cannot get a pulse. So, yeah. Well,
Help me to understand. So I thought it was presented that there was a conversation at Teaching and Learning in our committee process, which is something that we've used as to, in a conversation around the school board is interested in making connections to school buildings. There are certain things that we do that the board is invited into school buildings. And the point of this conversation was then to share publicly what the school board is looking at, to then go back to the principals who are in charge of their buildings, are in charge of student data privacy, and are trying to get an awful lot done in every single day. So help me to understand why there would be a school board vote when it was framed as this is a conversation for the board to share what they're interested in, to then engage in a conversation with the principals to share what they think would fit well to center student learning, and then it would come back to the board, and then it would be a conversation until we came up with something that was mutually agreeable.
So how do you determine that mutually agreeable final determination, final result?
As we do in everything in our district where we have conversations within our committees and we get on the same page of what we're doing. A vote could be, again, I'm just a little confused because is it around the board members making a vote of what they want to do, or the board as a body working with the principals and the building leaders as bodies to trying to find an agreeable solution to mutually meet everyone's needs?
Number one,
Chair,
the committee is not the final decision maker. The committee is only an advisory role. The final decision is made by the board of 7 members. Number two, how do I know as chair that every board member is in tune with what is being recommended right now, what the principals will come and tell us, and eventually, how do I know? I cannot read their minds, okay? And just by them saying something, I cannot gauge whether the board is in agreement or not. I cannot.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I think, one has to ask if we have a policy that says,
Yes.
board members are able to visit buildings. What is the purpose of having that policy if it's not going to be applied, if it's not going to be implemented? And so I think that if there's not been a history of board members visiting buildings, well, surely that policy has not been implemented. And so it would make sense for the board to signal that we're interested in partaking in that. I think we've signaled in many ways kind of board members visiting classrooms. I think principals have now had several days to look at this document that just outlines some of, the real good that can come from these things. And so if the board, wants to vote to make their consensus clear to the community, I'm all for that. Really to ratify the existence of a policy that, as far as I can tell, has been dormant for quite some time now. So really important, certainly as we begin to navigate a potential ask to the community for a pretty considerable amount of money, that we're opening up any pathways to engage, any pathways to talk. This is our way of doing a lot of work on the front end, so the work on the back end is more simple, more streamlined, and ultimately more efficient. So I absolutely support this.
I have a point of clarification. What policy number are you referencing right now?
Yeah, so I just took a look if we can, speaking to the conversation at the Teaching and Learning Committee and what Dr. Anderson and I were asked to do with principals. I think the policy you're referring to is 909 on visitors and 909R. This is the first time we didn't discuss that at the committee of the board, and I don't know that we referred to this because I think the intention of this policy is for all visitors from wherever. I don't know that it's specific to board, and so I don't know if you're considered, if this is meant to refer to you or not, I don't know. So I think that's one thing we'd want to bring back and have some discussion around because we haven't discussed this policy at all at that level. And then Dr. Anderson, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think the principals, from my recollection of the data feedback we got from them, were opposed to anybody visiting their buildings. They would just like to have a clear process and intention and purpose for those visits, and a system in place. And so we had talked about some possible systems to work with through the committee of the board to create that system for that. And I know I had shared some as a former principal in a different district that we had with our board. And so I think that was the last discussion, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Anderson, that we had at the committee of the board.
So there are many school districts around us, and I have surveyed them. at least 6 or 7 that responded to my question. They have school board members visits to buildings. They do not have a policy. Most of them do not. One does. Most of them do not have a policy. So I'm not insisting on having a policy. I'm not saying that. There are 2 or 3 school districts that have the procedure incorporated into the board handbook. We absolutely can do that. As a part of our board handbook, we could include that. It does not necessarily have to be a policy separate for the board.
Okay, sure. I just, on behalf of principals, want to be able to say, I don't think any principal was opposed to having board members. Correct, Dr. Anderson. I think they're just wanting to have a clear system purpose so that they can make sure it's a good time and we respect the needs of our buildings and principals as well.
If I can just clarify where I was coming from, we have a visitor policy, a general visitors policy that have guidelines of who is allowed in the buildings, what their purpose is. And so the point of this conversation, because principals have already spoken about, what a potential, they'll define kind of what the process is around how, what these visits are going to look like, just like they define how to allow parents into buildings for volunteering or any other, for lunchtime with their kids. They define those processes. It was my understanding from our meeting, after the conversation that was had with principals, that we are simply trying to state our why. It's not that anybody is opposed to board members going into buildings. Our principals seem very supportive of it and open to it. It's just a matter of they're trying to understand so that their time is well used, as is ours. What are we trying to gain? What, as board members, are we trying to learn during these visits? That's all this conversation
the gains
is.
are all listed in there. Okay, all of them. Number 2, almost all of these schools that said they have school board members visiting buildings do 2 things. They make sure the superintendent is aware of that. They make sure the principal is aware of that. They do not just go there, knock on the door and say, I'm going to come inside and sit in a class. They don't. So we understand the principal's concerns, but what we are saying is, if there is a genuine reason, if for example, a teacher calls us and says, come and take a look at the class, I think we should not be disallowed or rejected from going to those classrooms. If there are other reasons why we want to go to the buildings, not just visiting classrooms, again, they are all listed here. Building relationships, demonstrating commitment. It's also an image, right, for the board members to be building relationships and showing commitment. So as far as objections are concerned, what the concerns are, you certainly can present them in May. That's fine. And we can also put in place rules in the org meeting. Remember in December, I had projected on the screen about 7 or 8 rules that I thought would be appropriate. Maybe they were wrong, maybe they were right. But we can come up with rules that will satisfy both parties. Do we want to work with you and the principals? It's not like we want to force ourselves. But to reject a board member from going to buildings, if one of these reasons can be satisfied, I think is something that I cannot fathom.
Chair Sahoni, may I maybe as like a way to move forward with this, what our next steps could be if it sounds like first we need to express the why behind that and then work. I don't think we're at the point yet where we're discussing the what kinds of, what form the visits will take. Could it be visiting classrooms? Could it be volunteering? Will we be given tours? It depends on why we're going. And it doesn't have to be the same every time. But I think for this purpose now, if we discuss the why statements, and then again, bring it back to teaching and learning, hear from the principals, work in cooperation with the administration. Is that a good point now? And that to focus just again on the why statement. Do board members have comments, suggestions?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, go ahead.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, I heard about why, and I feel like this document is answering on why. And to be honest, what my understanding also, administration wanted to know, understandably, why, so that we're not just showing up. And trust me, we will not just show up because we have our life. We are working during daytime too. But I, for some reason, when I observe this room, even I can see it's more actually resistant within several members within this room for some reason. I don't feel from it, at least I didn't hear from administration during teaching and learning committee or somewhere else that there is resistance. I just wanted to know why.
Yeah,
I feel like
I
the
didn't either.
resistance more from some members here. And I don't
think anybody expressed resistance to visiting schools. I think we're not in agreement on the procedure moving forward. Do we need I don't know, again, going back to the why, are we in agreement on the why? Is this good? And then the procedure moving forward, maybe we don't need to vote on anything or do we want to put it in the handbook? I've heard some random things thrown out, about the way forward. So if we're all good on the why, we can move on from that. I haven't heard anybody up here say they don't want to visit schools. I think right now we're just trying to figure out what is needed of the board to move forward.
Has the this might be a better question for Dana Miller or Dr. Anderson. Have our building principals been able to see this draft? Have they been able to see the why? Okay, all right. Okay, all right. Well, and I think, if we are talking about a vote, I mean, certainly if we have this policy 909R, that governs visitors and how they're able to enter buildings, if we're talking about voting, yes, if we have to amend that policy to say we're going to include school board members in that, then to amend a policy that we would have to.
I don't really think we need a change in policy. I don't even think we need a policy. Like I said, other districts are working very well. Many of them don't even have this in their handbook. It is a very informal process. If we don't want to do that, we can at least have it in the handbook.
All right.
As a procedure for the board members.
All right. Well, then
that would be fine too.
All right. Well, then
but the main question is we have to decide whether all of us, not all of us, all don't have to be in agreement. It doesn't have to be a consensus. At least if the majority thinks this is the right thing to do, and we can convince the administration that they don't have to worry about us making them uncomfortable or anything like that. Everybody is working toward the same goal, right? We are all working on student outcomes. We are all working on relationships with the community. We are all working on making ourselves better, right? So if there is agreement on that, I don't think we need a vote.
All right.
But we need, I need to know that yes, the majority of them are shaking their heads and not doing this.
My understanding, a short version, we basically want to know when we can start doing it. Because we had been discussing this, and we are coming to the same kind of.
So yeah, I in teaching and learning, we kind of estimated about when we could start, and we were thinking the beginning of next school year. So that was just an estimated timeline. It sounds like, I mean, I'm not hearing from anybody any disagreements about the why statements going, so the next step from my understanding is I will bring this list to teaching and learning. There will be more discussions with the principals, and we will.
Would you suggest then that they come and talk to us here if they want, or just feedback
I'll
from
leave
the
that up
committee?
to
Either way is fine.
Dr. Anderson and Dana Miller.
That way the whole board can hear what they are saying, right? Teaching and learning committee is 3 board members listening to them.
I mean,
if we discuss those things with the whole
there's
board,
no reason to, I mean, if everything's just fine and, we're going to be allowed to visit.
We don't want these discussions in the committee to percolate to the whole board, with the what do you call those serial communications, because that would not be appropriate.
So if we were given permission to start visiting at the next school year. Is that kind of the outcome everybody's hoping for?
That's the reason, yeah.
So if that happens, I mean, are we?
One would anticipate that any sort of parameters and the conversations about that would be presented for the whole board and for the whole community too. We remain a deep commitment to community and community input and partnership. And so it does make sense that we would have a very public conversation around what the parameters are and what is happening so that our community is aware of that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, so I would suggest, yes, that we try and see if the principals
We
or
revisit
even
this
Chase
at
on
another
behalf
work
of the
session.
principals can present that in the next work session, if possible. That would be fine.
We have until September, right?
No, I know, but
Okay.
it takes time. It takes time to put that in the board book. We haven't even started working on the board book. It takes time to put everything in the board book. We need sets of rules. We need to get together and decide what parameters, what guide rails we are working within. We cannot vote in September and say, or no, well, decide in September and then start implementing that. It will take time to implement.
I think that I agree with you because typically if we leave it till September, I can guarantee it will not happen even in December. I mean, it'll be
Let's not go there. I think I would rather finish this by June, one way or the other, because like you said, we have been dragging this for over a year. I would like to have this done with yes, no, either way. Hopefully we are agreeing that the whys are good. And
So next steps, bring this to teaching and learning. We'll revisit this at another work session within, the next few months with input from Dr. Anderson, who has to organize the principals.
Can I just add one piece? We are at the end of the school year. I'm concerned that if we make this a very high priority, we're going to be missing something else at the end of the school year. So if this were to go into June or into July, I would be okay with that personally, because I know how busy and hard the end of the school year can
I
be.
don't feel confident that the month or two will start this process by fall.
I think, if I may, I think in general we've seen that the summer work sessions are a little bit less, busy. We have fewer items on the agenda. I think, to engage in this June, or I think probably June would be best.
Okay.
That would be my opinion. That would be my.
Yeah, so school year ends.
Oh, and that is
30th, right?
well, and that is, and certainly what Heidi just said. If in case the microphones didn't pick up, it is the end of our fiscal year. But I'm hopeful that we can talk about this. This is really important, and if we kind of decide tea time is, beginning of the school year, June would give us enough time.
What's your thought, Chase, on doing it in May or June?
I don't know if I have a specific timeline in mind, but I'm hearing from the board this is a very high priority, which is a message to me to prioritize it and go to work on consolidating what we've heard from principals, what I've heard from you. We'll have something in place for the fall. I don't know if that means June, July, or August when you have a final plan, but I'll work with the principals and teaching and learning members. And these types of initiatives and projects have a lot of tails and interconnectivity and things that need to be ironed out. And as I said, I'm hearing it as high priority for the board. I wasn't able to get this up high on my list for priority this year. For that, I apologize. Perhaps I should have elevated and amplified the efforts on it. But I'm hearing that you want this done, and we'll work toward putting a plan in place that's responsive to principals. This is an example of an endeavor that will take time and energy for the principals to coordinate. If we do like a large group board visit to schools, that would be one way to do it. There are a lot of logistics to work through with that, which can be done, but these types of initiatives aren't effort-free. It will require some planning. If it's more of an individual board member visiting to schools that are assigned, that takes a different kind of a planning. Maybe it's some kind of a combo pack. I don't know. The principals have nothing to hide in their buildings. They're very proud of everything happening there. So it is not a matter of, I'm worried about school board members coming into my school and seeing something that, is bad going on. And the reality is it will cause different reactions from staff and maybe even principals, just the very nature that you're school board members. I think some of that happens as a superintendent as well. That's just a reality of the positions that we all hold up here. And I think it's true for my team members here in the room as well. I've always felt welcome in the buildings when I've gone in. I've heard from our teacher leader who's here in the room with us that teachers love it when we're in the buildings and they enjoy it. And we just need to build a plan for how we can best do this. So, the what, if that's a complete list of, I don't know how that was assembled exactly, but if that's a list of the board priorities or what, the what of you, or the why of the visits, that's helpful. We have information from principals. I don't think it would require a new policy or board vote. I think it's an operational protocol that we need to develop and implement, and we'll figure out a way to do it that hopefully will meet the needs that board members have identified.
In the interest of time, I'm not going to read out all the comments that I got from school districts around us. I got very positive comments, and almost all of them said, we don't send the whole board to a school building at all.
Well, I have a question about that.
2 or 3.
Because we haven't discussed the what.
2
We
or 3
discussed the
members
why.
are assigned to specific buildings, and some of them are called ambassadors to those buildings, and some of them are required to go once every quarter. Okay, so
Dr. Anderson, would you like board input on the what, or would you like that to be something kind of initiated with principals and yourself, and then you come to us with ideas? What would you prefer?
Me?
No, I'm talking to Dr. Anderson.
I think we generate the ideas based on the inputs. Okay. So the list that you just provided and what principals provided, taking into consideration current visitor policy and protocols and what are applicable to this and what aren't. I mean, obviously, I understand your roles are different than many parents and citizens in the community. You have a unique role, and it will require some unique consideration, I think, in regard to your proposed visits versus any other community resident. And we do need to just kind of gauge the normal operations of the school day, what makes sense, how often. There's probably a longer list of things that we'll just want to consider. We'll prioritize it and get something in place for the fall.
Okay.
Thank you.
Paras is not here today, but he shared with me his thoughts, and I can just tell you that he says he's a strong proponent of school board members visiting schools, and then he wrote a whole paragraph in there. I don't want to read that right now. I could if you want, but that's what I'm providing as feedback from him, at least.
Can you read it, please?
Can I read the paragraph?
Yeah.
Can, absolutely.
He put an effort.
I'm sorry?
Yeah,
He put an effort.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, so he says, I'm a strong proponent of school board members visiting schools. These visits would allow us to observe firsthand how policies are impacting students and staff, and to better understand and appreciate the day-to-day realities within our school. The goal is not to micromanage building operations, but rather to listen, learn, and build relationships. Board members could also participate in volunteer activities, for example, helping in the cafeteria or assisting during special events to demonstrate accountability and strengthen connections with the building staff. As we develop this idea, we should define the expected outcomes and success criteria to ensure visits are meaningful and not simply symbolic. Institutionalizing regular visits rather than making them feel like an extra burden on building leadership should be a priority. Similar to our rotating committee meetings, we could explore rotating 2 to 3 board members every month or every other month for school visits. Recognizing that some board members may have daytime work commitments, we should also allow for flexibility and provide an option to opt out when necessary. Overall, I believe thoughtful, consistent school visits would strengthen our board's connections to the heart of our district and improve our decision making. So, and he basically addressed the issue about everybody visiting the school, buildings, and that obviously is not our plan or our goal. But I think we should move on. May, June, whenever you are ready, if you can come back and help us out, understand, and then we should work together. I really do want to work together, okay? And not like we are the board, so we can do whatever we want. No, that's not the point. Okay.
Can I have just one final comment, if
Yes,
that's
Heidi.
okay?
Yeah.
Dr. Anderson, if there is something that, because you need to prioritize this, that will have to take a back seat, please make sure to keep us apprised of that, because I know this will take time and effort. I just want to close on the fact that I want to say thank you to all of our building leaders and all of our principals for continually keeping their doors open and for inviting us to so many events and for inviting us into their buildings. This may be a new process, but there are so many times and so many opportunities that they have given us to come into their doors and to engage with students in already developed ways. And so I just want to make sure to take a moment to say thank you for those opportunities. And whether they're in the evening or during the day, I very much appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Heidi. Okay, all right. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda, part of the board reports. And it is an overview of school board priorities and initiatives. So I'm going to give you a brief background before I go into the slide here. So let's see where I was. Okay, so after assuming the board chair position last year, I was thinking about initiatives the board could take up based on feedback from the community, my board colleagues, and my own thoughts. All these, in theory, add value to student outcomes directly or indirectly. So I emailed Dr. Anderson the list seen on the screen and copied Vice Chair Heidi Kader on that email as well. These are board priorities for discussion, and this is the forum to do so. It's also transparent and not to be confused with admin priorities. This is not a final list. Other board members can bring up other priorities or can reject any of them that they feel that are not appropriate at this time. So how the process will work is similar to how we had envisioned the board members visiting school buildings to work. So this actually has started already. The individual priorities were proposed to the chairs of the individual committees for discussion in their committee meetings. Okay, and after that, we may have a work session based on what the outcome is from those committee meetings. If the committee decides, yes, this is a good thing to look at, discuss at a work session, then we'll move forward, and then we'll decide what to do after that. Because concerns and questions came up from a couple of board members, I want to clarify that this process was put in place after consulting with the administration. This process includes transparency, public input, and participation by the whole board. I did not have to bring this in front of the board. As a board member, I believe I have the prerogative to ask a committee chair and or the superintendent to look into an initiative. But after consulting with Chase, there was a question whether I would like these to be brought to the board at a work session. I thought that was a great idea, and therefore I said yes. So let's talk about the individual initiatives. So visits to school buildings by board members, I don't need to talk about that anymore. Community listening sessions, several policies, including 212 and the 900 series, I believe it's 902 and 905, refer to community participation. The listening sessions are at the discretion of the board. This was discussed in the Community Relations Committee and will be brought up at a work session as recommended by the committee. Solar panels on school buildings. This is being discussed in the Facilities Committee. We haven't come to a conclusion, and at this point, I don't know where it'll end. High school student representative on the school board. As you might be aware, a bill to require student representation on the school board has been introduced this legislative session. Should the bill pass, a student rep on our board will be mandated. A work session with an MSBA staff present has been scheduled for June. Legislative Action Committee, this was disbanded a couple of years ago. Several members who were on that committee have reached out to me asking if it will be reinstated. I would also like this discussed in the Community Relations Committee. It may end up going nowhere, I don't know yet, but the point is, these are all initiatives that are recommended. These are priorities that the board should consider. And some of them may end up nowhere, some of them might be pursued further. And then PACO classes at the high school. This is something I learned during a webinar a couple of years ago, and it was brought up as an idea to get increased funding for the general fund. This, I believe, needs the Teaching and Learning Committee as well as the Finance Committee to get involved. And again, Paras has responded to this in a positive way. Let me quickly read that. It's a very short paragraph, so it won't take long. So other school board initiatives also make sense. As mentioned in the slides, it would be appropriate to bring each of those forward first within the respective committee, followed by discussion at a work session. In my view, visits to school buildings, community listening sessions, and adding a high school student representative to the school board could be the top 3 initiatives to start with. However, I'm fully open to adjusting the priorities based on what we collectively determine as a group. So I am going to open this for discussion. Anybody have any thoughts, any comments? But just to remember, this is not even as close as the school board members' visits to building is. This is kind of right, this is something that I wrote to Chase and copied Heidi on it on March 15th. So just about a month ago, barely a month ago. This will take a long time. These are long-term goals. Yes, Sarah.
So it's 7:24. So I'm just going to share some thoughts that I have about how we move this process forward. This is not something I think is timely or appropriate to engage in long-term discussions about. But you can take notes about how we can move this forward because you mentioned how it's going to get moved forward. So number 1, this is school board initiatives and priorities. I would like to see documentation of how this was collected by all 7 members. It doesn't say draft, it doesn't say proposed. It's gone out as a public document saying that this is what we're doing, and that feels kind of alarming. If you overlay this with some of the things that we've talked about this evening, like the DOP and the 4 goals and areas that the school board said that we would support Dr. Anderson and work alongside him in making that happen, I would love to see really specific ways that each one of these are in alignment with some of those DOP goals. Additionally, we had a fantastic presentation tonight by Technology, and Technology gave a great example of how they have a work portfolio and the work that they're doing and when they do it and what their measurables are and what their work plan is and the ways then that their work plans support and work together with other departments. So I'm super curious I know that Amy directs the Community Relations Committee, and she has amazing work plans, and Dana has a teaching and learning plan as well. So I would like to see how these school board priorities fit within the departmental work plans and are in alignment with the things that they are doing. Lastly, let me make sure I got my things. Yeah, and then lastly, I think most importantly, we've talked a lot about our growing student enrollment and the number of curriculum changes that we're doing and the programming changes. And so I would like to see how each one of these, which will take a lot of time and effort, how they will move forward student outcomes and student learning and center students in all that we're doing. So I look forward to that feedback in future conversations.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah. First of all, I have to apologize to you. You, I think, emailed me something in response to this on Sunday. I did not get a chance. I was very busy Sunday. I did not get a chance to look at it on Monday. So don't be giving me that smirky look, please. Okay, please calm down. So Monday I saw that, and it was very close to the work session yesterday, and I completely forgot to reply. That does not mean I could not have replied to you, so I apologize for not responding to you. But I did notice that you had said, I would like your feedback on these at the meeting. So here we go. I'm going to give you feedback.
Milland, I said, please, can we talk about this moving forward? It's 7:27, and we have other people that have lives that are on their way home.
No,
It is not my intent to get your response
Chair, if I
tonight.
may.
So thank you.
Mr.
So
Chair,
when
if
you
I
bring
may.
those up, how can I bring those responses to the whole board without the board being here?
You said we were going to talk about them in future meetings. So when we talk about them in future meetings, that they will come. I think Mr. Ginestra has.
Wait a second. No, I'm not
Mr.
done
Chair,
yet.
if I may.
Dan, I'm not done yet. Hold on 1 second. First of all, yes, this is a draft. Okay, it doesn't say draft. This is a discussion, as it says in the agenda item. It says this is a discussion. Okay, so does that mean this is final? No, absolutely not. And I've repeatedly said this is not final. This is nowhere close to being final. The committees headed by Dana Miller and Amy Parnell, I think SLT includes Rachel. I don't know if she is a part of committees, but she will not be included. But the committees headed by Amy and Dana will absolutely be involved. You also asked me in that email about Principal Gengler's being involvement. At this point, I don't see it necessary because Dana can handle that. At some point in the future, she can say, well, we have to talk to Scott. Absolutely, yes. So I'm not trying to push these through at all. If PSEO classes, for example, Legislative Action Committee, I spoke to Chase and he gave me his opinion, his feedback, and I clearly told him, I said, I'm not stubborn on these things. I'm not insisting that these be incorporated. I do want a conversation, and that's why they will come up with committees, because I could have done that as a board member. I didn't have to do this here tonight. As a board member, I could have gone to Dan, I could have gone to Sheila, I could have gone to Heidi or other committee chairs and said to you as a finance chair, I would like this discussed in your committee because I would like to know what we are thinking as a board, as a district. Don't I have that prerogative? I do.
And in many ways, you
Absolutely.
have done that.
Go ahead.
And in many ways, you have done that. I mean, I do just want to take a moment and really reflect on the great conversation we were able to, have about community listening sessions at our Community Relations Committee. We talked about how at different, important parts of our district's history, whether it's, rewriting or, altering, let's say, our, strategic priorities, district roadmap, we have brought people in to listen to what they have to say. Just, at Facilities Committee a little while ago, we had a great conversation about solar panels. So I think in many ways, these topics, these items have come to people's attention. And the real virtue, I think, of tonight is that, while it might be a late hour, we're able to talk about them as a group, which is something that we don't often get to do. These are a lot of things that I will say with what lies ahead in the future for our district are going to be really important for all of us. As I talked about a little bit earlier, if we're able to engage more with people, it helps the efficiency of our processes. And I see, really no downside to saying, how can we listen to the community? How can we adopt measures that might be more efficient in terms of saving costs down the line? So we are discussing, if that's what the board chooses, the merits of the idea. We're not promising any action, and certainly we're not committing to a certain, this and that. What I want to hear, especially as the chair of the Community Relations Committee, is what do folks think about community listening sessions? Do they see a future for that? What do people think about the bringing back the Legislative Action Committee, which has been, dormant for a little while? What do people think about a high school student representative on the school board? This is really valuable feedback that, while we might not be able to meet and engage a lot as committees, as committee members, it's really, really valuable to have. So any feedback that might inform, my role as it pertains to, community relations or, teaching and learning, finance, whatever it might be, I think is going to be helpful for all board members.
Okay, thank you, Dan. And in answer to your question, I'm going to answer one question right now. I understand it's late, I'm sorry, but we of course, we did add an item to yesterday's agenda. So we did go over time, partly because of that, right? And you can't just bring up questions without me letting me answer those. Okay. So you talked about how each of these priorities align with strategic roadmap, the current needs of the district, and student learning outcomes. The district strategic roadmap strategic directions include Learning and improving from community engagement and strategic partnerships. That's number 5, this strategic direction. Number 6 is ensuring the efficient and effective use of district resources. At a minimum, the initiatives address these priorities. And if I may remind you, 3 years ago, Heidi, I believe, was in that meeting, and Jay Hesby was there. I was there in a meeting. It was a listening session with the Healthy Foods, Healthy Habits group. Those are the kinds of meetings I'm talking about with listening sessions.
Chair Sahoni, could more board members have a chance to talk?
Yes, please.
It sounds to me like we have time, or it's not maybe the right time to discuss the merits of any of these ideas, that maybe, as we did with the board members' visits to schools, this is just an initial idea, and that they will be discussed in committees. They could be discussed in more depth at future work sessions. Was that your intent?
That is absolutely
Okay, so
right.
like now is not where we're going to decide whether we agree with any of this stuff. This is just I think what this board struggles with, and I guess I can't speak for everyone, but I personally struggle with how to bring things up, how to bring topics up, how to get things on people's agendas and radars. And so this to me seems like an attempt to do that. If there are other people that want to add things, or subtract things, that's part of the process, right? And so maybe then we've brought this up now. This is the first time people have seen it, so they know they can, that these will be discussed in committee meetings. And is that where we want to leave it now?
So
Yes.
may I add something?
Yes.
So in regards to the solar panels on school buildings, because I am chair of facilities, you did reach out to me and asked to have it added to an agenda. We recently discussed it at a meeting, and it was in the context, a larger context of, efficiencies, conservation, what are the different ways that our district is approaching this. And at the end of that conversation, we learned quite a bit. I know I did. And I asked the administration if they would bring some of that information and actually do a work session on that. They agreed to it. And so I do think using our committee pathways is the appropriate way to do it.
Yeah.
And I think it's the most useful way. And from those conversations, then each committee can determine, is it worth the rest of the board learning more about this, or is it not? But I really think that taking that pathway is probably the most efficient and effective use of all of our time and effort.
Absolutely, and that is precisely what I've been repeating again and again. This is not the end all. This has to come in front of the committees. Again, I also want to point out that committee recommendations are not the final decision. These are just, committee is in an advisory role. So whichever committee comes up with a suggestion, advisory, decision, it still needs to be discussed at the board level.
Absolutely,
Yes.
and that's why that
The work session.
conservation and
Yes,
yes,
absolutely.
coming to a work session
that
so
was-
that all 7 of us have an opportunity to
Yes.
hear the same information,
Absolutely.
ask questions, and go through that whole process.
Absolutely. And
So
that's why I remember I was asking John Deutsch if he's okay with me trying to bring somebody for solar panels and you could talk to him. And he said, yes, I will talk to them, because something was decided 8 years ago. 8 years is a long time when technology is concerned.
So
And
this
things have
this
changed.
list is your attempt to be transparent, to let all board members know
Yes.
what topics have been brought to the committees, and to let the community know what topics have been brought to the committees.
Absolutely.
And so that is what the purpose of this is.
Can
Absolutely.
I add
Yes.
one more piece just so that all board members have this information? After every single meeting that we have, you have access to the agendas, you have access to the meeting notes that you can go into and see all of the topics that have been discussed. And so from there, if you let's say I'm a board member who's not on a specific committee, I can still go to that chair and say, hey, I have a question. Can you tell me more about the discussion that happened about XYZ? You have every right to do that, and you should be doing that. You should be reviewing meeting notes, and you should be taking a look at things on an ongoing basis. That's part of our job.
Yep.
And so if you don't have access, reach out and ask, and we'll make sure that that access is there.
I appreciated this heads up, Millen. Thank you.
I had been waiting politely enough. I guess that at this point I'll just intersect myself. I'll be honest, I don't know what is, I observed it's kind of absurd that we spend so much time in argument. This, I myself might not even agree with some topics, but hey, I mean, we have different perspectives, different views. I can hear, maybe I'm not educated enough on some topics, and I'm perfectly fine with somebody bringing different priority, I mean, different perspective, different topic. And when I saw this list, I didn't take it like, oh, Millen sat down and made that list. No, it is not. It is like, I perceived this paper, this document as that we can discuss. There might be some items we can say, you know what, this is not good time, and that's it. That's just like 1 minute discussion. And I think that it's not fair to look at the watch so many times, especially considering that in the past we spent like 6 hours on some ridiculous topic in the past. So please, that is kind of shows disrespect to the point. If we sat other times 6 hours, and everybody probably remember that kind of meeting, we can sit a little bit here, and nothing bad is gonna happen here. Second, yes, we have procedures. We can read from here and there. I heard similar things about handbook. That handbook is ready, like last year. I'm still waiting for it. So it is not completely true to that degree. We can just simply, as adults, sit down and discuss. Community listening sessions, is there an interest? Yes, no, that's it. If there is yes interest, then we can talk a little bit. If no, we will just leave this topic, move to next. I mean, it takes. And then we can prioritize. By the way, which of them is your priority? We can take 3 topics or something and build up and then talk. No, we are not loading administration. We didn't even take these topics as we are going to be doing it. I am taking this one as if like checking the room temperature is then in an interest in discussing these topics.
All right.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, any other comment before we adjourn?
I mean, I think just kind of in general, what I'm hearing from colleagues is, just really a sense of expediency. That, these are.
Can you speak up a little bit or come closer to the mic, please? Yeah.
Is that the challenge?
I don't think there's a sense of expediency. I think this is just bringing this up to let everybody know that these might be discussed in future work sessions. These might be discussed in committee meetings, and that it's just transparency and letting people be aware. And if they want to add topics,
when we say we are one of 7, we have to demonstrate that everybody has a voice,
right?
Everybody has an opinion. Everybody can say whatever they want about it.
Well, yeah, I think just kind of in general, what I'm hearing is that this is kind of a reflection on the fact that some committees meet more often than others, and so we're able to discuss some items more often than others, or discuss some topics. We have more opportunity to discuss topics at some committees relative to others, and so maybe that would be a opportunity for collaboration. Just as how I'm seeing that a lot of these topics involve some committees and not others, just to really ask if, maybe it's important to board members that we meet a little more in our committee structures so that we feel as board members a sense of satisfaction that we're not having to wait too long to have a conversation, that we're able to tend to a need and discuss it as we like.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Chase. I'm sorry. Who was speaking?
As it is written in operating procedures, it is stating that any school board member can put an item in agenda. It is written that I can, for example, if I have something I consider that it is valuable, I can bring as agenda topic to the perspective of a chair and vice chair. In fact, I would like to compliment our chair, that our chair, maybe he disagreed with some topics, but he allowed some topics to appear at the table and start some discussions. That is healthy.
Okay, thank you. Chase, you had a comment?
Yeah, I was going to share a couple summary comments, so I'm going to go back to something that Sheila said about how do we go about determining what it is we want to discuss? So I think that's like an overriding question or goal that you ought to establish for yourself as board members in regard to how you want to approach this. Heidi referenced the committee structure we have in place, which I think is sort of the place where a lot of these types of things can be discussed and determined if and how or when they get moved forward. To Valentina's point, any topic can be brought up out of interest because everybody's going to have different interests. One thing I would just caution the board on is, think through this thoroughly. They have a very hardworking team. They have full plates, and any initiative or exploration of an initiative creates workload. And I think I just want to make sure that we have a process not only to generate ideas, but how do we prioritize and maybe tie them to the roadmap, as Sarah indicated, and let it help drive the roadmap forward and the strategic directions forward. And if it's not in alignment with one of those, and it is a high priority, then we need to reconsider the strategic directions at the appropriate time, and that this is really something that we want to interject. I would keep student learning and academic achievement and the student experience front and center in regard to anything that we insert or add. So those are my only comments that I would share and offer.
Thank you for the recommendations and the thoughts. Okay, I think we will try to adjourn. Okay. This completes our work session for this evening. The next regular school board meeting will be on Monday, May 12th, right, Amy? Yes. Okay. The time is now 7:45. The Wayzata Public Schools Board of Education work session for Tuesday, April 29, 2025 is adjourned.